Okay, let's call this Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, Board of Education for Almont Schools meeting to order for the work session at 6 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Burns, as you're filling in for Mr. Burrow, will you do roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Burrow. Mrs. Fred. Mr. Eckert. Here. Mrs. Roterius.
Here.
Mr. Burns, present. Mr. Wade. And Mrs. Smith.
Here. Thank you. Mrs. Van Heltmeyer, adoption of agenda, any addition?
I do have an addition under communications. I would like to add number 6. I wanted to provide a higher checklist, and you have that in front of you. I'd just like to touch base on that if I could, so I'd like to add that as number 6.
Okay, any deletion?
No.
This will open us for our first questions and comments from the audience for anything pertaining to the agenda. Would anybody like to be recognized at this time? Hearing none. Mrs. Van Heltmeyer.
So under communications, we are going to start with our master schedules, kind of 1 and 2 together, and our handbook updates. I do have my administrators, my principals, and our counselor here tonight, Mrs. Narad, to help present. So we're going to start actually with both primary. Mr. Bruno, a familiar face here.
Thanks for
We
saying.
wouldn't want to leave you out. So.
Thanks for saving my standing spot in the board meeting. I will be much briefer tonight, I think, than I have been in previous iterations. But thank you all for having us here. So, only a couple things updated as far as our handbook for next year. 2 major updates. Number 1, attendance at after-school events. We've added in order to attend an after-school event such as a concert or like a color run or some kind of school-sponsored event, asking that our students are present or have got that absence excused. Similarly, similar to how it is at the middle and the high school, just to make sure we're staying consistent across the board. And then we've just updated our field trip and volunteer policy just a little bit for the 25-26 school year, just to address some of the things we've seen this year. Most importantly, not having younger siblings there when they volunteer. I love seeing the little ones around that are going to be future Raiders, but just so parents are really focused in on the kids that they're there to serve, avoiding phone usage, making sure they're really focused in on their own kiddos that are there, not just their own child. So that's all just updated in there. You can see those. It is linked within our handbook update that was, I believe, shared ahead of time. So any questions about our handbook update?
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
Always happy.
So on here it says classroom app. Do we have one that we're designating, which kind of brought me back to thinking more about like the parent square issue and stuff like that. So in the handbook we have a couple spots where it says classroom app, and I guess from my perspective sitting here, if we don't direct what's to be used, then anything can be used, correct?
Yeah, so right now we have teachers, most of our teachers use Class Dojo. There's a few that use like Remind, and I think there's 1 or 2 other ones out there. So right now we've just kind of left that open for the teacher to choose that. And then at our back to school night or our curriculum night, Popsicle Pop-In, our teachers are really good about sharing with parents which app it's going to be used and how they're going to be communicating along using those apps in there. So we left that just open, added that classroom app in there so parents know that teachers are available through Dojo or whatever they've outlined at the start of the year.
I guess that would be a question for us to figure out if we want to have it in the directed app or if we want it in the open.
Yeah, until such time where we get a community,
And I think that'll be
District
timely with the board asked right now to revisit that, along with, actually there's a survey right now out there for our coaches, just to kind of gather that information, and then that'll go to the principals as far as if there's common apps that are being used for the classroom, we can tie it all together. and make a recommendation for our usable, recommended, whatever it's going to go, board-approved apps for communication. I think that's where you're going with it.
Yeah, I just, if we don't direct it, then they can,
Yeah, we just want to be careful. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe this has been going on for.
This has been, for several years.
The Class Dojo, there's different apps and things that are going to be used, but if it's for the two-way communication, I think that's what we're saying, is that we'd like to see
Yeah.
consistency and, across the district.
I'm sorry, we only have like a certain number, we have limited licenses for Class Dojo, right?
There's a free-ish version to it, I believe. I'd have to look for sure what it is. My favorite, honestly, is Class Dojo because, number one, the parent-to-teacher communication is really easy within there. I don't know if any of you guys have used that with your own kiddos. It also has components that teachers are really able to use well in their classrooms. Most specifically, it's got like a cool little behavior, like they can give positive points or negative points if they earn enough positive points over the course of time. Teachers have like a dojo store, they can earn those things, and then they can also set it so that parents can see, like, oh, my kiddo got these positive things for doing this today. So I think it's a really nice two-way communication tool that also has some additional things. It's also got the class and the school story on there as well. So as far as putting out larger communications, like our teachers when they were organizing the science fair, for example, put out on the Class Dojo app for anybody who was on there, hey, the science fair is coming up, please remember to have these turned in by then as well. So I personally like Dojo, but ultimately if there's a preferred app, we definitely get on board with whatever the district thinks is going to be the best for across the board.
And then I had a question about for the coaches for the club and the after school stuff. How are we, or what's your thought as far as, so the people who are running those events, are they gonna get like a attendant, like how is that gonna be managed? I guess I don't wanna put more on the people who are volunteering and, now do they have to like check with the school, like, I don't know.
Yeah, so my thought really with that is more just like we want to put that out there as a reminder to families. I wouldn't ask that, like, if it's a music concert, Mr. McAllister to have like an attendance sheet of like, oh, Johnny was out today, sorry, turning away. More as like a preemptive thing to our families of, if you weren't in school today, please either reach out to the office to ask about attending, or we ask that your kiddo stay home. Because if they're sick, we don't want them also feeling like they need to show up to something like that. If your kid is sick, like, please keep them home. It's not, they're not going to be dinged on anything. I guess also too, on the parent perspective, I don't want to go to the color run and Johnny, who's been sick for 3 days, all of a sudden is there and getting other kiddos sick there. I extend that courtesy to our other families as well.
Gotcha. And then, so is tech still being taught at OP? Or something that I was thinking we had removed tech?
Yeah, so our art tech so art is split one day a week. They do art, the other day they do tech within there. That way they're getting those different experiences. That one, the tech side of things is when they're getting some more of that STEAM type of experience as well. Like Ms. Tencha will do some of those stations within there, particularly for our third graders too. One day a week they'll do an art special, the other day, or they'll do art, the other day they'll do like some typing club just to get them that experience. So art tech we've kind of just called it art, so shorten the name within things, but it's really been that art tech shared special.
Okay, and then the only thing I would say that is, can we add tech under your page 8? Because it's not listed as a special.
Oh, yeah.
So just that way it's more consistent throughout the book.
Absolutely. So on page 8, yeah, we'll get that up. I'll update that. I'm back in my seat.
Sorry, I forgot.
You're okay. Hey, questions is how we get better.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. My computer got a touch up. Okay, so the last page for 59, so it's got like teacher name, and that says if young 5th through 3rd grade. Is that just because, like, isn't that everybody in the building unless we put preschool there? Like, if you want to
Yeah, I just want to make sure I answer your question correctly.
understand, like, so here it's got like teacher name if young 5/3rd grade. Like,
Oh.
I'm trying to understand.
It should just say young 5th through 3rd grade. I think that if we just need to take out there. It's a good catch.
Okay.
Because, yeah, it would be young 5th through 3rd grade are all of our students. I guess if we have GSRP, then we are adding GSRP over there as well as the tuition based. So that's why we could leave that in there.
That was all I had.
Good questions. Okay. If you have questions on that, I'm happy to come back to that as well. Our schedule and our class sizes largely just depends on the amount of kiddos that come And so I won't read through like every single number up on there, but just kind of the top line news there. Young fives, one section. I apologize, my numbers didn't. That's why you quality control yourself, my bad. It should say 18 roughly in young fives. Some of that will also just depend on our kiddos and the parents' interest in being part of young fives. We do have kindergarten roundup tomorrow and Thursday. We'll start making those choices. That number in young fives will be somewhere between 15 and 18, I think is really the ideal number given the age of those kids and the intensity of what they're doing in there. Kindergarten, looking at 4 sections right now, unless all of a sudden like 20 more Almont families come out of the woodwork and jump in. So that would be an average of 23 per section. First grade, averaging 20 kiddos in a section with 4 sections. Second grade is our really big class right now, just how the numbers lined up as they came in. Looking at 5 sections of 22, and then third grade, looking at 4 sections of 24. So that also reflects itself within our schedule. I did link it in there if you have specific things, but just a top line overview of what it looks like. Twice per week, every kiddo, young 5s through 3rd grade, will have 2 art tech specials. Twice they'll have gym, and then they will have music once per week. One of the things we really tried to do is keep it consistent so that everybody had no more than 2 different times of a day when they would have a special. So if you've got your special at 8:45 one day, then you'd have that one, and then maybe you have it at 9:35 another time, just so kiddos' day is largely consistent. Since we only have 3 specials to offer, nobody could have the same special every time a day, just because that's how numbers work. Looking at 20 minutes for their first recess and then 25 minutes for lunch, as well as 1 additional 15-minute recess throughout the day. Really important that we have both of those recesses, because if you've ever had a student who's between young 5s and 3rd grade, you know how much energy those kiddos have and how valuable that time is throughout their day. And then there's times when they're just subject to change. If there was any changes in our school schedule, any changes to anything bigger picture, obviously we'd be flexible within there. But that is our general overview of what a day is going to look like at OP. And that's all I got for y'all. But any questions on our schedule? One other special too, they also have library once a week too, but teachers sign up for that once the year gets started, as the year goes as well. All right, well thank you all.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to share.
Your time.
And I will disconnect so that Ms. Lewis or Mr. Spear can come.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so I think all of you have a copy of our handbook changes. So we have 5 pretty minor changes with the exception of page 39 for the visitors to align with the OP handbook. So starting at the top, academic verbiage, we just want to change a little bit of that language for long-term absences, for if we have a project, maybe a culminating end of unit project that might be a 2-week project, that we don't extend those due dates past the quarter, that parents and students kind of know ahead of time that those are going to be due prior to the absence when applicable. Then if there is a case of an extended disciplinary suspension, just to kind of encourage the kids to do the work while they're off, because they do have access to all the work and assignments that are in class. So we kind of change that verbiage. Dress code, we're just adding a couple of items just to bring it up to date. And same with the electronic devices, just deleting pocket pagers and adding smartwatches to the list. And page 39, the visitors portion, essentially that's just to align with what we just discussed with the OP, just to try to align with those expectations for our volunteers in all of those environments. Then last, the verbiage is just to bring it up to date as we're now using the family ID system, so they no longer have to physically fill out those forms. Any questions about the handbook changes?
I have some.
Yes, ma'am.
The page 13 part,
Mhm.
for the extended, for the homework stuff.
Yes.
So do we offer internet or hotspots for the kids when they are on extended leave?
We have not had a circumstance where there were a couple families that didn't, and we did accommodate those kids. If they
Okay.
were unable to do their work at home, then we accommodated those children. I'm not aware of a hotspot option for kids in this district. I'm not sure if we do that, but we, again, have made just our own inter-building accommodation for those kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can make
I
sure
can think
that
of one
somebody
case that- off the top of my head.
wants to do that and they can't.
Yeah, we
then
understand
not-
that.
We're working with them or however that would work.
Absolutely.
And then I noticed for the dress code, that is in the middle school handbook
Mhm.
and then compared to the high school handbook. The middle school one actually seems more, like firm. And so I didn't know if there was a reason why the middle school and the high school one would be, different and not more similar.
I feel like we actually pulled a couple of pieces out of this handbook, out of it, maybe I could be wrong, I'm trying to think, because I suppose Midra. Yeah, I mean,
I have not adjusted anything.
Well, for the interest of just, we have 4th through 7th grade, so I don't know, is there anything in particular that you are,
No, I was just
Questioning?
wondering why they weren't the same, I guess, if there was a reason as to why, I know what I heard from, our administrators is we're always looking to get them prepared for the next building and the next building and whatnot, so I just wondered if there was a reason why they didn't, make the right role similar. Just a question, just wondering.
Yeah, I can tell you, like, at least on my end, that was kind of before my time. We haven't really discussed parity, because I'll be transparent, I didn't know there was a difference between them. I thought they were the same, not necessarily something that was on our radar, at least on my end, I can tell you.
yeah. We don't have too many issues with dress code, we've had a few, and the kids are really good about adhering to it. So I think for me, it's just protecting them at that age.
Yeah.
And just making sure that they understand the expectations.
Okay.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Excellent, so we'll go ahead and move on to the schedule. Did you receive a copy of the schedule by chance?
I don't know.
Because I can always send this to you, but we'll go ahead and pull this up just so you can see it. So it's a little bit of a different format than what Mr. Bruno provided. So as you can see here at the very top, we have our 4th grade. So we currently have 5 sections of 4th grade. The averages, I think, in most of the grade levels, we're averaging right about 24 to 25 students per class. I can get those specific numbers for you if you're interested, but we will have 5 sections again of 4th grade next year. There will be a little bit of flexibility in the morning for that ELA time based upon paras and their schedules, but essentially those are all the core classes that they will do in the morning with their social studies and science switches in the afternoon. And then when you get into 5th grade, we are adding a 5th section because we currently have 5 sections of 4th. Therefore, we will have 5 sections of 5th. So we will be adding a teacher in that. So we kind of worked it out based upon just data and instruction. We feel that using a 2-person switch like we do this year, and then the 3-person switch would be the best for kids next year. So that's what we kind of panned out, and that's what it would look like. And then for 6th grade, everything's pretty much staying the same. We're just switching a couple of elective times around, but nothing too much there. And then same thing for 7th grade, with the exception of a couple of courses that I would like to put on your radar for 7th grade and for 4th grade. As you can see, first down in technology, kind of where this cursor is in the bottom right corner, we this year had split up music and recorders into 2 separate specials for 4th graders. We didn't really show that we were receiving like really positive outcomes with that change. So we're thinking about blending the music program back together, so music and recorders into one specials course. And by data analysis and strong teacher request, to try to put in a technology course back into our course dialogue or course catalog. The reason why we had it in 5th grade, I guess, like 3 or 4 years ago before I was here, and the kids are just coming in. Though they do have some practice in 3rd grade, they're still coming in with very little keyboarding and navigation and Google Suite and that type of thing. So we just want to give them extra practice, explicit instruction, utilizing the same programs that they're utilizing in OP. So that would be like typing club, but with a progress monitoring tool built into it, as well as the digital literacy and digital just citizenship class as well. So I'll be bringing more information to you in May. And then if you look over in 7th grade, we added a life and leadership skills class. Again, I'll bring that information to you in May. There's a little bit of history there, though, that if you can see there, that's under Mrs. Royster's schedule. That was a Choir 7 course prior. We did a student interest survey and didn't have the numbers to meet the criteria for a course. So we started kind of thinking about different ideas based upon student interest. One of them in the high school was a piano course, which they also did they did some scheduling, and I think you guys came up with 16 kids. What was it? 12 kids. So the plan C was to go to look at what the students were asking for. And I even think in one of your tours, they mentioned it, which I was like, okay, that's great. So it's a life and leadership skills course. So I started kind of creating the outline for that. I'll have more information, but I'd like you to consider that for an additional course as well for next year.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I think so. It looks great for now. So we'll see how it goes, and we're trying to put that curriculum together for at least a solid outline for you in May. Do you have any questions about the master schedule?
No real question, but I like that you're adding like those 2 courses and kind of give them more options. So, thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon / almost evening, folks.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, get up here.
Mr.
I'm accompanied by my wonderful counselor, Mr. Rod. I also dared to be different and heroically did not prepare a presentation for you. But I did want to go over a few things with you in regards to our school handbook proposed changes before we get into a little bit of the master schedule, and Mr. Rod's going to help me out with that one because she is the wizard there. So for our recommended handbook changes for next school year, the big ones, and again, I know you shared a copy of this in advance, so I appreciate if you want to follow along or anything during that time, but we had a couple of just like curriculum type things on page 19 and 20 where we wanted to remove computer science graduation requirement from the class of 2025 chart, and then as well as remove the credit required to graduation table on page 20. So just some kind of housekeeping things with that. We specified on page 23 that Saturday detention is for each of the 6th through 8th tardies that students can receive. And then on pages 51 through 52, we did some serious proposals to amending the cell phone policy for the high school. Specifically, what we're looking at is we changed some of the language in there just to update it, but specifically what we're looking for is implementing phone tree system in the building. So each classroom would have a phone tree, and we would norm around the idea that students are to deposit their phones and potentially other electronic devices into those phone trees for the duration of class. As far as consequences or anything after that, those will remain the same. Like I said, just some language changes there, but that's the big thing we're trying to get behind when it comes to a proposed handbook change. Do I have any questions about that?
I noticed for the board members, it's just got the wrong numbers. I just want to make sure that gets updated.
Absolutely. That's something I can make sure we can get.
They will update.
Yep,
yes.
absolutely. Can I make sure that will get updated? 100%.
And then I already said about the dress code, not making, that or whatever. That was all I had.
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith, I was just curious, what was the driver for removing the computer science requirement?
Dean, could you help me out with that, please?
Yeah, so that was actually a board remove requirement. So the school board had the requirement for computer apps, and students were taking that in the 8th grade for high school credit. And a few years ago, that requirement, the board decided to remove that requirement given, and I believe the rationale behind that was that they were receiving those skills at lower levels. And so, and they're also utilizing those skills in their core classes through their Chromebooks and Google Classroom and the other experiences. The state of Michigan requires an online course requirement, but that is met through the requirements of our Google Classroom and experiences. So the board removed that requirement for any student after the class of 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
Mrs. Harris, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, just kind of wanted to touch base on the phone tree, and I think there was some questions there. Was this prompted by a staff member, or what
So,
started the phone
of
tree
course.
idea?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the school year, even when I came into the door, there had been buzz around the building about how the student use of cell phones had seemed to increase over the years, and that they were hoping to find some type of consistent policy around it within the building. I talked to students about it all through the school year and said, hey, we'll be looking really closely at that data to see if there's something that indicates that we need to make some changes. And to be transparent with you, there has been quite a lot of cell phone use that's been documented in classes, and specifically things that are troubling and concerning to me are the use of during school time cell phones to commit what we consider like poor acts of digital citizenship. Recording people without their permission, spreading things online through social media. These are things that we could prove happen during school hours while they should be sitting in class. And so for me, that is an issue that we need to address. I put out a survey to my staff and asked kind of, hey, what is their opinion on how they would like this to be handled? And the overwhelming response was cell phone tree. They wanted something to be done, and again, we had a few that were like, throw them in boxes and throw them in the bottom of the ocean, but most people were just like, we want a cell phone tree. We want something that's a little bit more restricted and a little bit more accountable.
So aside from the staff survey, was there a survey sent out to any parents?
It was a discussion that I had with staff as well as a couple other people, and what I determined essentially was we have data that shows that there is improper cell phone use in the building. We have data that shows that we have a large amount of those infractions happening, even just having them out and utilizing them. And we have a strong staff support for needing that kind of change. The idea with the cell phone tree is that there wouldn't be a lot of disruption from access from parents to students, right? Because they're still housed within the room. And that was why, in talking with folks, I didn't feel at the time that it was necessary to launch a community type of response for that. I figured if we could do something where we still have, 10, 15 feet away, a student can still go access their electronic device or their cell phone should they need to, or they're aware that a family member is trying to contact them, that would be something, a compromise I feel that the community could get behind. If we feel, if the board feels I need to send out some type of feeler or survey for that to the community, happy to do so. But that was kind of where my head was when I made that decision.
Okay. So with the cell phones and the smartwatch, would that be one and the same, or how would it work with the smartwatch? Is that?
Yeah, so that's kind of why I changed some of the language in the handbook to from prohibited item or from cell phone to electronic device, because specifically the change is, again, the expectation is cell phones in the tree. The other expectation is if a staff member, and that's what I put in there, says also your smartwatch or also your AirPods or another electronic device, then those can also be deposited in that phone tree. I'm not going to make that a requirement at this point from all teachers, but they have that affordance if they would like to, if they see that as becoming a problem.
So, sorry for all the
No,
questions.
what do you, of course, that's what we're here for. No
So,
problem.
if a student has to use the restroom, they can't take the phone with them, right? Once it's in the
Yeah.
phone tree, then it's there.
Yeah,
Until
because
the
it
end
would
of
be
that
very
class.
easy for them to say, hey, I have a parent emergency or something, I need to use my cell phone. I think at that point we can talk about that. But yes, if they go to the restroom, the expectation is you're going to the restroom and your phone will be there.
So I guess that would lead to my next question. If there's, God forbid, a situation that's happening in the school that's dangerous and someone had left the restroom, how will they know that maybe there's an, I hate to even say this, but like an active shooter?
Well, what I could tell you in
How does
that
that
response
work?
is,
Right.
everybody in the school is aware when an active shooter occurs, including us folks in the central office, because of the Blue Point system, which is amazing and very comprehensive. And I believe it sends out text messages and email alerts to like everybody. So even if this specific student doesn't have their electronic device, they're going to hear the noise, they're going to hear the siren, they're going to see the sirens and everything. They're going to know the procedures, because we do the lockdown procedures 2-3 times a year. And they might not have their cell phone with them in that moment, but there's going to be plenty of indicators that this stuff is going on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
Is are the staff participating in the cell phone thing as well?
They're welcome to.
I mean, like, I guess I'm asking what your expectation is. If we're asking that of the students, are the staff also doing that? I just asked.
No, I wasn't going to ask them to do that. I certainly don't have data that supports that staff are using their phones in the way that students are using them. That would indicate that they would need that.
No, that's a professional.
Yep.
That's a professional courtesy that we extend to our staff. The
And I-
expectation, of course, that they're not on their
Yeah,
cell phone.
and
Unless,
yeah.
obviously, unless there's an emergency that arises, but I would not want to suggest that for our staff.
Of course, and again, there's data that I could produce that would show the need of that for students. I certainly don't have that data for staff that would indicate that.
That's a question.
Yeah, of course, yeah. No, not a problem. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can we ask for that data, and is it appropriate to ask for a survey to be sent out for parents?
You definitely can. Does everybody
Absolutely.
feel like a survey would be valuable?
I don't think there needs to be one, but
We can discuss that more.
I don't think there needs to be one.
Okay.
My recommendation is to go with, Addison, you have the data, you presented it, you did have staff feedback, you have the data that supports that we have enough cell phone violations to warrant this. I don't feel like it's maybe even appropriate that it's a community response as well at this time.
I defer to the
Not
board.
for this decision.
Of course, I defer to the board and yourself if you would prefer anything beyond what
That's my
what I'm
recommendation,
recommending.
but I, just because.
Yeah,
I
happy to
present-
proceed with whatever we need.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mrs. Smith, I'll just say, I feel like this is a good, measured step in reaction to, in response to the data, and, it's a good step, and you can see over the course of next year how effective it is.
We can talk about your policy after again. Any other questions from Mr. Smith?
Excellent. Well, then we'll go ahead and move on to master schedule. And Mr. Rod's going to help me out with that. I did want to, if I could, just say a couple of words before she gets started with this, because I do think that we have some unique challenges at the high school that made this, I think, a bit of difficult process. One of the things that was imparted upon us when Ms. Narad went through many painstaking hours to get this to look how it needs to look, was the requirement of 20 physical students in seats per classroom. Some stuff that I was pouring through because it wound up being quite a difficult test to make sure that that does look good, and it does. We did get there, so Ms. Narad will be able to tell you about that. But in the process, we wound up losing a few electives that I thought were really valuable to students, but we were not able to square away the 20 students in seats. And Ms. Narad can tell you a little bit more about that, but we lost psychology, we lost piano, we lost AP Calc, and we lost biomedical science. That's tough. We want to make sure we're doing what we can to honor the board requirement, to make sure we have that, but I do want to be mindful of the fact that we have a lot of students. I believe the number that we have is 65 next year going into from 11th grade and 50 from 12th grade going into Ed Tech, which takes away for half a day those students that could otherwise be in physical spaces. Now that's not a program we would ever want to lose, because that would certainly then severely diminish the electives and the other offerings we have for students and make us a less attractive high school for folks who are looking for places in the area or even want to remain in Almont from kindergarten to graduation. But I also want to be mindful of the fact too that we are dealing with dual enrollment in Michigan virtual, which by law we have to honor. So these are other things that diminish and take away from our physical in-seat offerings And it also kind of puts us in a position where, because we have that now 20 students in seat requirement, we additionally are losing offerings. So we're losing offerings from our legal obligation for dual enrollment Michigan Virtual. We're losing offerings from our need to want to offer ed tech as a competitive school, and then we are losing these 4 electives this year or this upcoming year because of this requirement for 20 students in seats. I just want to be mindful of that as we go along through the school years, that type of requirement may be a little detrimental to the health of the high school as we shrink our elective offerings for students. I wouldn't be surprised to see students start to look at other districts as being more attractive, those high schools that have those bigger elective offerings. So I just want us to keep in mind that as we look at the information tonight that Ms. Narada is going to show you, and keep in mind again that we lost some 4 pretty cool classes that I would have loved to have offered at Almont High School next year. But thank you. I'll turn this over to Ms. Narada.
So, I brought physical copies of the semester 1 and semester 2. These are our in-seat teachers, so this doesn't include like ed tech, dual enrollment, or Michigan Virtual. So they're paper clipped together, semester 1, semester 2. Right.
You have the counselor.
So yeah. That's right. So what you see in front of you is what is currently scheduled. Since some of you are newer to the board, I thought I would just tell you a little bit about what the process for scheduling at the high school looks like. So this year what we did is we put a survey out to our teachers back in, January, February time period, asking for any requests for any new classes that they would be interested in offering to our student population. So we gave them about a month to submit those. We received about 9 requests. Some of those were not feasible due to like certification issues like hunter safety or yoga or a couple of different things that were requested, but biomedical science, the piano class, and like a engineering class were ones that were included as teachers desired. So then what we did is I gave presentations to all 507 students in grades 8 through 12, class presentation, whole grade level presentations where I outlined what their requirements for graduation are, what elective offerings they had available to them, and then anytime I get in front of students, I always try and take the opportunity to impart a little bit of either academic or social emotional or career post-secondary planning. So when I'm talking about scheduling, I talk a lot about post-secondary planning and kind of grade level, what happens at each level that they need to start thinking about. So 9th grade is all about, honing in on those academic skills and learning how they learn best and all of that. And then 10th grade is starting to think about what kind of things interest them that they might want to explore as a career. 11th grade, we get into the where are we going? Are we doing trade school? Are we doing college? Are we doing employment? Are we doing military? What kind of pathway are we on? And then in the 12th grade, we're talking about like, what are you doing? And what is that next step? And what are the hard deadlines and things that we need to do? So once I give those presentations, the students are asked to submit their course requests through PowerSchool. And so I have to set up all of those screens and all of that, and they get a couple of weeks to make those requests in PowerSchool. They also submit a paper form because sometimes they don't always do the PowerSchool part correctly. So then I have a backup in the case where they, request not to take any math class, and then in PowerSchool, and then I go, yeah, no, you have to take a math class. So I know which math class it is they need to take. So they submit those paper forms and the PowerSchool forms to me. I then also, for our 7th graders, myself and Danielle Murdoch coincide to present to the 7th grade, talking about the 8th grade curriculum. Those they are not able to submit on PowerSchool because they're not currently in the high school yet. So I then have to hand enter all of those requests into the PowerSchool system so that I am able to create a master schedule and then load students into each individual section. So that's how I spent my spring break, was hand entering all of those. And then once we get all of those data numbers in terms of how many students have requested each class, Mr. Spear and I sat down, decided how many sections of each class we needed, and then we start plugging those into like our teacher certifications, starting with our core classes, and then being able to offer the electives that are interested. After that, I load the students in. It's never a perfect match for every single student, so this year I got pretty close. I had 419 students that were fully scheduled out of the 507, and then I had another 50 that were missing one class. So I have about 65 students that I have to hand manually touch in a scheduling situation, and that's the part that I'm living in right now. So those schedules will be finalized 100% by, June when I leave for the summer, and then students' schedules are printed and distributed. Alongside that, as the students are requesting it, I also take our juniors and I do a graduation audit on each of those juniors to make sure that they've met all of the graduation requirements except our senior year. So I actually handwrite these for every single junior, going through the 4 years of English that's required, the 4 years of math that are required by the state, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, a semester of PE, semester of health, 1 full year of visual, performing, or applied arts. So that is music, art, or any of our CTE, like EdTech programs. And then 2 years of a foreign language. And there are a few exceptions that we're able to grant for students in certain requirements based on the state of Michigan recommendations. But I do that for every junior, making sure that they're on track for graduation, so that if we need to plug in any, missing courses, we're able to either do that in the summer in between 11th and 12th grade if it's a credit recovery, maybe they failed a class and they need to recover it, or we can add that into their senior year schedule if it's they missed that art class or a gym class or something like that. So then, based on that, we get all of our numbers in and our teachers scheduled. So based on the board's request that there be at least 20 students in each class this year, for next year, all of my classes, or a couple of outliers, have at least 20 students. So that there are, 8 classes that right now currently have less than 20 students that are scheduled for them. Those classes would be, we have a couple of hours of academic support that you'll be seeing in our course curriculum guide. And what this course is individual assistance or small group assistance for students who are not meeting academic benchmarks. So whether that's through testing or grades, they may have a 504 plan, they don't qualify for special education services, but they may need help with organization or with some additional instruction. So we're offering that for our students in a couple of spots.
You might call it a remedial class.
You may call it a remedial class, correct. All of our special education classes obviously are less than 20 just based on the number of students that we have that have an IEP and the legal requirements that we not have more than a certain number. So we would never meet that 20 person in seat in our special education. The other class that has less than 20 is the applied physics courses, and those are for the same reason that those are remedial physics courses for students who struggle in math and science. based on their benchmarks, grades, and test scores. And so those classes are below 20 to be able to provide that additional support. Likewise, our math lab, that is a teacher-placed course in the 8th grade for those students who, again, are struggling in math and who need that additional support. So we provide that in that course. And then the other 3 classes are 3 of our advanced placement classes. So our AP government class, our AP pre-calc class, and our AP language class are all under 20. They're close, they're like 15 and 11. And that's, we would hate to lose those classes just based on the ability for those students to have that advanced level coursework, prepare them for college or their post-secondary plan, and also have the ability to earn college credit while they're in high school. And then our last one, which might get to 20, I'm still working on a couple of students, is our publications class. And that's the class that, I have 17 right now. That's the class in which they make the yearbook and they learn, do some communication and newsletters and that kind of thing. So those are the classes right now that we are under that 20. Everything else is above 20. Unfortunately, due to the seat requirement of 20, we were not able to offer a few classes that we would have liked to. So that would include AP Calc. Actually, I had the largest group of students request AP Calc this year than I have in the last couple years. Biomedical science, our piano composition and theory course, psychology, and then advanced art and honors algebra 2. So we lost a few of those. I will say in going through this process, a couple of points of pride as it relates to what we're able to offer our students. We have the ability, and our students take advantage of dual enrollment in a large number. We actually are the 3rd largest provider of dual enrollment for Macomb Community College, and we're not even in Macomb County. And we're going up against districts like Utica and Chippewa Valley and all of that. So our students are coming out of high school with college credit, and I think that's absolutely something that we should be proud of and happy to provide for our students, because many of them they can take up to those 10 courses, which then cuts time off their degree. It leads to higher graduation rates, and it's less of a financial burden for families in our community to be able to come out with some of that college credit. On the other side, we also send a majority of our students in 11th and 12th grade to our Lapeer County Ed Tech programs. And one of the things that is fun for me, but also something that's a benefit to our students, is we are guaranteed a certain number of spots in each program. We receive 3 seats in each of the 18 programs that are offered at Ed Tech. However, we have the ability to go, all of the counselors in the county go to a swap, they call it, meeting, and we're able to pick up additional seats. And so this past year I was able to pick up 10 additional seats for our students to go to Ed Tech. So I was able to get every student who applied to Ed Tech the last 2 years into a spot, at least their first or second choice. Some of those chose not to take that, but that's something I think the ability to get hands-on experience in a trade. Some of those programs provide articulated college credit with other programs. Many of them get certifications. Like I just had a student today tell me he got his dental assisting certification through Medical Careers. So they're getting these very viable skills to take out into the workplace. And so the fact that we have that ability and that we are encouraging our students to take part in that is something that, again, another point of pride for the work that we do here at the high school. And I just talked a whole lot and told you about the last
Any questions?
6 months.
Thank
What
you, Ms.
questions?
Sherrod, that was very thorough, thank you,
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Mrs. Smith, not a question, just want to
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mrs. Smith, is the academic support in the student handbook, in our curriculum guide?
It'll be added to, it is added to the curriculum guide that you will see in May for approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know how I recognized, so
Yes.
we gotta make sure we're doing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And also, I mean, you have to understand, because we are a smaller school, we alternated biomedical science every other year, as we did with psychology. That was some of the things that we had to do, because we don't have the number of students that want to take those courses on a yearly basis. And unfortunately, what does happen is some kids end up not being able to take it.
Yeah.
So,
We haven't been able to alternate even.
That's kind of the issue, is
That-
this would have been our year to alternate, and we can't.
okay.
Yeah.
How many kids, would have been in those classes that you're not holding, do you know?
Yeah, so AP Calc I had 7, which for AP Calc is a lot. I know it sounds small, but
It's a very hard class.
yeah, but for 7 students to want to take calculus in high school and have met the requirements, that's, like I said, that's the most I've seen in a number of years across the districts. I had 7 for biomedical science. I had 12 in our piano and composition course. I had 21 for psychology, but it's a 1-semester class, and so I wasn't able to, I needed 40 in order to be able to offer it,
20 per semester.
because it's 20 per semester.
We had 21 total.
And we had 21 total. And then art and honors algebra 2, there were only 2 apiece, and they didn't.
Those are pretty negligible.
Yeah, so those wouldn't be ones that I'd recommend that we added, and I was able to put them in other areas, so.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep going, do you have any?
No, that was it, actually, thank you.
The personal finance that's on here, do all the students take that?
So right now, as that exists, it is a math elective for 12th grade students. However, the state of Michigan, for the class, are 8th graders right now, so class of 2029. Yeah, that is a new graduation requirement that all students, by the time they graduate, will have to have a personal finance course. So we will look at adding that, making sure that we'll add to the graduation audit to make sure that those students in that grade will all meet that requirement by the time they graduate. So we'll probably see the need for some additional sections in upcoming years in order to handle that requirement. Because right now I only offer 1 section each semester, and I will need more.
As we get closer.
Yeah, as we get closer to that group graduating, I'll need more capacity in that course.
Mrs. Smith, maybe just one more thing. The normal route is before you offer anything to students, it needs to be approved by the board ahead of time. So we're kind of reversing it a little bit. It needs to be approved here first before it gets offered to students. So typically, the approval of the curriculum guide is in January, if not December, just FYI.
Okay.
Understood.
Well, actually, where I was going with that, Ms. Brennan, I thought we had talked about this a year or so ago with the personal finance. We said we wanted it implemented across the board for every student. And this may have not been within this one, so I'm not putting it on.
Oh, okay, no, it's okay.
When I saw that personal finance on there, it kind of jogged a memory.
Okay.
And now it's a requirement, so it's
Yeah,
gonna be
let's
added.
talking about it at some point in time in the past at the board and the importance of it and how kids really do need that and stuff. And so obviously maybe it just got lost in the shuffle or whatever, so I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that it's on there and that you're
Yeah.
ahead of it and stuff. I think it was very valuable.
Yep.
And
Great.
whatnot.
I will say,
It was-
if I could, just in terms of a process, sometimes it's difficult with, like, our course curriculum guide in terms of offerings, like, sometimes my opinion is that it's a little difficult to do the course curriculum guide before we do scheduling, because I don't always know what we're gonna be able to offer and if there are additional needs for students at that time. So typically, like, I guess since I've been here, I've done course curriculum guide after we've done scheduling for approval, just so that I know that the courses that, are being being scheduled, because again, the students don't have their schedules yet, so if they're, you know, if the board came across something that said, no, this doesn't make sense, or that kind of thing, like adjustments could be made.
I would appreciate that clarity as well. So in the
Yeah.
past, Ms. Fraud, it's been where the board has approved curriculum before.
Correct.
Before
And
it's
so I
offered
thought
to
it was,
students. Okay.
yes, I thought it was a mistake when you did it before. So last year with the officiating class,
Yeah.
that was done incorrectly. I thought it was a mistake
Okay.
that you came to us late, and I was one that brought it to the attention of the board that we don't offer this in our course curriculum guide, where is this coming from? So, and that is something, I mean, the process actually started in October, where the principal would be having conversations with the staff about what would you like to teach, what can we afford to teach. We're supposed to actually see the full course content and curriculum and approve it before it ever gets offered to students. So, I mean, usually we have presentations from staff about, you know, what those courses are about. So for instance, when Mr. Forty came in and did
Sports officiating.
the sports officiating, I mean, that was done on the wrong side of the process. But that's what we're supposed to have done for any class that we decide we want to offer. It needs to be done ahead of time. And in regard to the personal finance.
So then, just
Oh, I'm
clarify-
sorry.
if I could clarify,
Mhm.
so just to make sure that we're following in step with the board expectation there. So then we would be presenting potential courses to you that may never be
Correct.
taken, but
Correct.
they would be approved in our course guide?
Correct. Mhm.
Okay, so we'd be putting out courses that maybe students may never take.
Correct.
I just
Yep,
want to,
and
I
that-
just
and that
I just
was
want to
in
make
the-
sure I'm
yep,
clear.
That was in the course guide. Typically, by December, decisions had been made, and I was putting together the curriculum guide. I always had to have it to the board by January 15th, before their first work session, or by that Friday before their first work session. So that we made the decisions in January for the curriculum guide. February 1st was the day that I started scheduling then for the following year. So we got behind because we had such a changeover with the counselor situation.
Right,
We
right.
had
I
a
started in
changeover with the
January.
principal situation, but I think that it's important that we go back to
Thank you for the
what we've had.
clarification.
And,
Okay.
and the reason why is things need to be approved. There's got to be curriculum there. It can't be, that's all got to be approved by the board ahead of time.
Which of course, nothing would be, the students wouldn't be enrolled in the class unless it was board approved, but you're
Correct.
saying it's okay to move forward with the board approval,
Mhm.
even though that course may never be taken,
Correct.
okay?
Yeah.
I thank you for that
I can tell you
clarification.
as well that certainly not intentional for this
Yeah.
misstep.
Oh,
I will, and that's full
Not at all.
ownership for me,
Yeah.
guys, I will take that ownership. I think I was confused on that order, just because we want to offer courses, right, that are going to be approved and
Correct.
students are going to be enrolled in, but you're saying it's okay to put it out there, get those courses approved, put them into the curriculum guide,
Mhm.
and then offer them to our students as
Correct.
they
And
get interested in
Sometimes
those
you ended up having
those
to pull them
courses.
back and go to the secondary options because in psychology, you just didn't have enough students. And yeah, we had to fill up to a minimum of 20 per class, so sorry about this frog in my throat. Don't know where that came from.
So please, that was not my principles, that was the direction
Oh, but you know
for,
what?
yeah,
And-
just so that we're
And I
clear.
understand,
I'm so sorry.
we've had such a changeover
Yeah.
with the counselors and, I mean, we just had a lot of changeover.
Sure.
But I think that it is important that the board totally understand what's being taught and we've got to see that curriculum before we offer it. Just like when we did the social studies curriculum, remember the teachers came in and they presented
Yes.
that before we approved. There was a pilot class at one time, but it was presented before it was approved for the following year. So that's typically the normal process that we've
Okay.
done in the past.
Thank you.
And I fully understand it's not on you, it's just.
We'll make sure we do
it's
it.
got
maybe
lost
what's
in
happened
translation.
the past
Yeah,
couple
lost in
of
translation.
years.
I appreciate you letting us know.
So no, we'll
Yeah.
know, we'll know moving forward.
No,
This time? No,
No.
we wait.
I mean, typically no.
We wait during
Sorry.
to the.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, though, thank you. Do we have any additional questions, comments about what was presented just now?
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
What happens to the kids that can't take these classes? Are they able to take like this AP count and stuff like that at college?
They would be offered as, they could, I mean, and I could speak a little bit on that, but I can tell you one of the backup options is a dual enrollment type of option for them that we could still potentially try and offer them here, so we wouldn't have to have them wait. But you can go ahead and elaborate further on anything else.
Yeah, so what I will do is, since we aren't able to offer that, I will meet with those students, let them know that that isn't an offering, and then the requirement by the state of Michigan is they still have to have a math class in their senior year. So we will look at either offering them one of our math electives, so personal finance or problem solving. If that doesn't, most of these, in this situation, they're advanced level students, so they may look at taking AP Calc through our Michigan Virtual, through our online provider, or we may look at allowing them to do a math course through Macomb, through dual enrollment.
And are they allowed to pick the math course, or do you guys have to set a list of math courses that they take?
So if they want to take the AP Calc, they would do it through Michigan Virtual, through our online provider. If they decide not to do AP Calc, then they could we have 2 math electives that they could choose from, either problem solving or personal finance. Most of these students have already met their 4 years of math requirement because they took Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And then they've progressed through Geometry, Algebra 2, AP Pre-Calc. Now they'd like to continue on with AP Calculus in their senior year. So if they decide that they don't want to take the AP Calc online, then they still have to take a math course because the state of Michigan requires that every student have at least one math course in their senior year.
But I guess I should rephrase
Sorry.
that. Are they able to take Calc at Macomb Community College, or?
They would have to meet their requirements, so as long as they met the placement test requirements, so they would likely need to test into that level. If they tested into the lower level, then they wouldn't be able to because they've already taken that course. Most of them probably, if they scored high enough on the AP Pre-Calc test, would probably place into the calculus, but it would be student by student.
Okay, so there is a path.
There is
There
a
is a
path,
path.
yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Smith, and just to clarify, unless it's changed in the past couple of years, Macomb does not offer a Calc 1 course. Unless they've changed that now, because we had that situation where we couldn't offer the Calc for seniors, unfortunately. And so what we utilized was the Michigan Virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Most of them,
There are courses there, there are other math classes that kids could take at Macomb. And there was always good offerings. You always like to keep them in-house if you possibly can.
yes.
But there are still good offerings for those kids. And then coming back to you on the personal finance, that has been a discussion. We've talked about how important it is that some of these components, that the kids have some knowledge base of this. We did not want to add another course to what was a requirement already, because we wanted the kids to be able to get some of those electives. That's why we moved the computers down to the 8th grade, so that kids could get more electives here in the high school. And some of that information in that class is actually taught in the government class, where maybe it's in the economics class, but they do their income taxes and some of those things are done there. But we always highly encourage, even the seniors that were the AP Calc kids, we always encourage them to take that personal finance, because there are just basic things that
They're good
the
life
kids
skills.
just don't know
Value
these
classes.
days. Yeah, and it's an incredible course, so the fact that the state is moving towards that as a requirement, that kind of takes that away from us then.
Yeah.
Because it'll be a requirement there.
Additional questions?
You guys have done a great job, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Everything but dance for
Thank
you.
much.
Yeah, let's do
Thank you.
that.
All right. Well, thank you, folks, appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Rod,
Thank you
appreciate
both.
you.
Yes, thank you. Alright, moving on to vacancy interview update, just because we do have numerous vacancies, I would say, I definitely did want to make an announcement, and of course to provide the board with an update just on our positions, our vacant positions. So for OP, Director of Student Success, we do have, we had 15 applicants come in, and we did start the interview process as far as getting, whether that's interviews scheduled, that has been started. So I believe there's at least 4. Oh, yep, you are right behind me, Mr. Bruno. So 4 interviews, right, scheduled for that. So that is on the docket. For the AMS MOSI teacher, we just posted this externally just this past Monday here, so yesterday. So that's been posted externally right now, and right now there's no interested parties. But eventually that will be, I'm sorry, I said internally, I meant internally. It was first posted internally. Now it's been posted externally, sorry, for the public, and that was just yesterday. So we don't have any, as far as I know, as of yesterday, we didn't have any applicants. GSRP teacher, we do have 5 applicants at this time, and we do have at least one interview scheduled for that. Head secretary, we had 20 applicants, and the interview process is ongoing right now. So we'll continue to update you on that as that comes along. And our high school counseling secretary, as you know, Mrs. Evely did announce her retirement. So we have that one posted internally, and that will be through tomorrow. And then we will post that position externally. Aid positions, we have quite a few going on right now as far as vacancies. We have an OP open paraeducator position, an OP part-time paraprofessional. We have middle school full-time paraprofessional. We have a middle school lunch recess paraprofessional position open, and we have a high school full-time paraprofessional position open as well. So anybody out there, or if you know anybody networking, looking for a job, please have them check out our website. I wanted to provide that update to you. Any questions there? Okay. Moving on to community survey, just wanted to provide a little bit of an update to the board as well. As you know, I've been working together with both putting it in front of you, the board members for any feedback, and also working with some community members. I am soliciting various community members out there, and I would just be transparent and saying, vocal, influential, community members out there that will help us and provide us with some honest feedback. So that's what I definitely did receive, putting the sample or draft community survey in front of them. So what you have since March 5th, I have shared the draft survey with the board, and I've met with at least 6 community members. So overall, I will tell you that I received very positive feedback about the survey and the questions. With that being said, there were a few recommendations for changes, and in front of you, I did provide the latest revision of the community survey. I would share with you some of the feedback I received, that it may be best to maybe hold tight a little bit, to hold this survey, not administer or put it out there to the public until maybe the start of the new school year, as we know that generates a lot of excitement. And let's just say what it is, we're a football town, it's football season. A lot of parents, grandparents, a lot of community members get out to the games, so it'd be a great time maybe to promote this survey. So with that said, I thought that was great feedback, so that maybe we would administer the survey in August or September. The majority of the community members recommended that the first question be changed to reflect a more direct question. If you can remember, that first question was more about identifying maybe a time span, whether it's 1 to 2 years, 3 to 4 years, to wait for the next bond or the sinking fund to go out in front of the community. This is a little bit more specific in saying, hey, so if we did get out there and put a bond or a sinking fund, right, or something on the November 2026 election, what would you support? So they recommended, and I heard that from several community members, and by the way, I met with community members, not all separately, I had small groups a couple times, or a couple people meeting at the same time, but it was interesting to hear that same feedback from many of the community members that I did meet with. So you can see the rewording of the first question there to be a little bit, again, it talks about what they could get behind ultimately in November 2026, or maybe none of the above. So that's also an option. So that was great feedback in my opinion. It was also recommended to me that maybe to be more specific about project priorities or listing a few of the ideas that would fit under the umbrella. So when you see number 2, so if a bond proposal is placed on a future ballot, what amount would you consider supporting? 10 million or less, 10 to 20 million, to provide some priority projects or examples there. The community members thought that would be helpful. So working together with the board in the next month, couple of months, getting that information from the board, getting some feedback will be very helpful. So wanted to provide that update to you for the community survey, but are there any questions?
Mrs. Smith. So number 3, when it's saying a sinking fund and it goes into the mills, it's not showing how many years you would be tentatively looking at. I mean, is that addressed anywhere?
No, I didn't get into the weeds with that. I was just looking for a pulse as far as like, the amount
Okay.
that they would get behind. I did not hear that, but I'm open to any suggestions, Ms. Rudd.
I just wondering about it.
Yeah. No, nobody's brought that to my
Looking at it.
attention as far
I
as how
think my
many
name
years.
was left off initially on getting a copy of the survey. So I think it was just, I accidentally left off.
Okay, I'll definitely correct that. And you have that, this is the most revised one in front of you, but
Okay.
I'll definitely send it to you digitally.
Actually, and I did see it because Mr. Burns had posted a question with it, or made a recommendation, and that's how I actually got a copy of it, and that's how I found out about it. So it was not a big deal if I didn't bring it up before, but
Oh.
just FYI.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure that you're definitely on there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions, concerns?
I guess, so are we waiting, is the plan to wait then until, which month?
Yeah, and I should follow up too. I would like to touch base with a couple more community members. I
Okay.
will tell you after, actually there's a couple that I would like to solicit, and then had a couple ideas or suggestions from the community members.
Okay.
So I'd like a little bit more time to solicit more feedback.
Perfect.
I think that's very helpful. And then, again, also wait until the start of the school year if the board would agree that that would be a better time to administer or conduct the survey. I'd like to wait maybe to that recommended time. I think there is truth and value in that.
So I guess our target date, is our target date August, September?
Could be August, September.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say in the thick of, getting started with school and thinking about homecoming and, football season and
Yeah,
gearing up
absolutely.
for the school year. I think August, September would be great.
Okay.
Thank you for your feedback on that. I appreciate that. Moving on to grants, I wanted to make sure that you had eyes on the 31A versus 31AA. Again, I'm just making some additional efforts to put definitions in front of you that make sense so that when we're going through and looking at applications for, grant funding, that it's clear that our 31A, in short, in summary, revolves around our, providing that support for our at-risk students. And then 31AA being more under the umbrella of our student mental health and our safety security projects. So I just wanted to make sure that communication, if you would need anything else, I would love for you to articulate that to me now.
It's in your drive under finance folder, and then it's a very long document, all color coded, and you haven't looked at it yet, that's where it's at.
This is good. I do have one clarity for that. Knowing what our budget was this year and how we were probably going to come in over budget, can we use that funding rather than always adding positions? Can it be used to fund existing positions? Would be my question. But I hear the comment a lot when people are discussing, hey, it's grant funded, use it or lose it. But can we use it for someone that already has a job here? Rather than adding another person, can we use the money to try to bring our budget back into balance?
And I
Would be my
think
question.
we already do some of
They're
that, right?
already
Some of that is
funded.
carried over.
Yeah,
So for
okay.
example, like our 31A, for example, could be our paraeducators that we leave in that pot.
Okay.
Mrs. Smith, and in regard to that, when the 31A and the 31AA were initially established, it said in that language that you could not use it for something that you currently had.
Okay.
So that was when we started hiring behavioral interventionists. That's how we hired them for OP and also the middle school. But it was told to us at that time in the legislation that you couldn't use it for something you already had established. And I wanted to thank Kathy. Oh my gosh, you just did an incredible job with this.
Thank you.
Some of the funds that you have saved for us. And I guess, I wish I would have seen some of this before I did a no vote on OP, so forgive me for that. Seeing where our funds are with that, it makes me feel a lot more comfortable in the decisions that have been made.
That's important.
But you have just, wow.
Thank you.
And I love the color coding, because that really did help to make it easier to understand. I know this took a lot of time for you, and it's greatly appreciated by the board.
Thank you so much. And board, if anybody wants a hard copy, you can grab one of these, the grants. That'll be helpful to you. I do have a hard copy. Kathy did printed those, so if that's helpful to you. We also did a hard copy. Yeah. Are we all set there? Any other questions? No? Okay. Moving on to number 6, that was the addition, the hire checklist. As promised here, when we were doing a workshop, just wanted to follow through on that action step. So I created a new employee recommendation for hire, just checklist, so that when we are doing the recommendations for hire, that you have the assurance that I have gone through the different steps here to make sure, and I have that, hopefully you have that in front of you. I did add that to your stack in front of you, but that the employee meets the licensing certification requirements, references were checked from previous employer, background check was conducted, the employee was selected based on his or her qualifications and interview performance, administrator submitted a letter of recommendation for hire, and employment offer was made pending board approval. So this is a quick checklist. Again, bullet points, that works for me. If that speaks to you, if this is concise, I would appreciate that feedback at this time.
Mrs. Smith, so this is what we're gonna use in lieu of getting resumes and all that stuff, right? Like, so is this gonna be the process?
This is kind of like to streamline the process.
Moving forward, starting now?
I would like, that's what I would like.
This was our recommendation to start morale.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I know, I'm just like, is this something we have to vote on, or is this just like, this is just what we're gonna expect now?
I think this is like a best practice, but I can double check.
I'm
Mrs.
just,
Smith?
like, I'm totally
I will
fine if
double
we start
check.
with it now,
Just to make sure that it follows in step with our policy,
Yeah.
of course, yeah, which I aligned it with our policy.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like an extra step, if you will,
Yeah.
to kind of ensure, but if it's anything different,
I
I
mean,
can bring that,
yeah.
I'll bring that to the board.
They recommended it.
That came from MASC.
No, I get it, and I'm totally on board with it, like, I just, like,
No, I
is
know
this?
what
what
I know
like,
exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
New hire next time?
And I wanted to mirror this, what we do with our policy, so it's
Yeah.
not almost like the extra step for a checklist to make sure
Yep.
that the assurances are there.
Yep.
If anything's different, I'll bring it to the board. Thank you. I think that'd be great.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah, you're gonna take a 10-minute
7:30,
break?
say 7:30?
Yeah.
Okay. 7-minute break, let you guys stretch, and then we can get into finance with Kathy. I grabbed some minutes. I grabbed some minutes too.
So, we had some testing that was done at the hospital. And I got there at 2:30 early,
We're on to finance, but if it's okay, I'd like to skip to number 5, just to respect a couple guests here speaking with us tonight. If I could have Mr. Spear speak to the interventionist position, and also speak to a couple curriculum programs too. And I know Mr. Spear, you're going to speak to one, and then this is Royster's here to speak to one. So we'd like to move you up to the agenda. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, and good seeing you all again. It's been a while. So, I appreciate you giving me some time to talk about support needs in our building. As you are definitely aware, we, at the beginning of this year, had, through several different circumstances, for maternity, and then for just a resignation, lost our mental health specialist. That was a big miss in our school. She has been very missed this school year. And despite the fact that it has been posted, and I'm calling the ISD and trying to figure out if we could fill that position, I have had no applicants for it. And this is a gap, like I said, that has been well noticed in our building by both our students and by the staff who have had to kind of pick up the pieces and fill in the gap there. Specifically, Ms. Narad, Mr. Zimmerman, and myself. I would love to have the ability to offer Ms. Narad more time to actually focus on more of her scheduling and counseling efforts, rather than being an overflow for students in mental health situations or students who have interpersonal conflict situations. But as it stands, the order of operations is I will usually take them first, and then if I am busy or I have a student, then Mr. Zimmerman will take them, and then if he is busy or has a student, then Ms. Narad will take them. And you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be because it is high school, about how much that occupies our time and how much that kind of prevents us from getting some of our other tasks done during the day, and how we can't predict those types of things when they occur. Now, somebody like a mental health specialist would step in those types of situations, obviously, and be able to help us out and assist, and they would be like our primary point person for anything related to those interpersonal conflicts, those mental health struggles. But without that person there, and with feeling that gap, I'm trying to get creative on how we can provide that support to, again, alleviate those additional responsibilities on top of myself, Mr. Zimmerman, and Ms. Narad. What I've come up with is that interventionist position that I see you have kind of in front of you. And the goal with this position, the goal with the interventionist is to, again, create a almost a similar type of pathway for that mental health specialist, but would, again, kind of reduce or relax those requirements for them, and would also kind of focus them more towards culture building. So an interventionist in this situation would be somebody who could step in and do tier 1 culture building, which means a whole school level, right? They could look at working with classrooms and working with teachers to make sure that their classroom management is aligned and that they're being very responsive to students and working with students and kind of elevating their voice in the class. Again, just kind of bringing up those cultural standards we want at the whole school level. They can work at the tier 2 level, so that's in students in small groups if we're noticing that students need to maybe have a little bit more life skill practice or decision-making, coping skills. These are things that an interventionist would be qualified to lead these small groups of 10 to 15 students with, again, we would have to look and make sure it's research-based or that it is appropriate for their title, but it would be on that level, those small group kind of interactions. And then the tier 3 things. These are the one-on-one situations. If we're having a student who is having a very severe crisis, if we're having a student who really needs that one-on-one support that might otherwise occupy, again, myself, Mr. Zimmerman, and Ms. Narad's time, they could do that. Additionally, an interventionist could also help us out with things like handling parent meetings if it was something that was related to interpersonal conflict, which is something that, again, I do right now, or Mr. Zimmerman does right now. It isn't necessarily a behavior thing, but it's something that is just a student-to-student conflict or a situation going on that is, again, a conflict within their own life that requires us to bring family or other outside support in to talk with them. This is a position that we could, you could put 10 of them in the school and they would still they wouldn't run out of stuff to do for the day. So having one of these people in the building, or a person like that, a candidate like that in the building, would be a great boon for our students as well as for us. And anything that is advantageous to us as admin and as staff support counseling is also advantageous to the students, because we're able to, again, go back to some of our duties that would benefit the whole school at that tier 1 whole school level. I do know, and I do recognize too, that there are other gaps that could potentially be filled with this type of funding where we could try and head in a different direction, such as a counselor. I'm open to that too. I'm not opposed to finding out where our needs are. The reason why I'm specifically looking at an interventionist is because when I look at the things that occupy, for example, Ms. Narad's time, when we look at like counselor versus interventionist, a lot of what occupies her time outside of her counseling duties are those interpersonal conflicts or those student situations that could be best served with an interventionist. If we were to bring a counselor on, it would just potentially, in my opinion, kind of tighten up the candidate pool, right? An interventionist would require less of certifications or specializations than somebody with a counseling background or somebody we're trying to find with like a counseling certification. For an interventionist, you don't need that certification. So that was why my goal was to just open that candidate pool wider. But I'm not opposed to bringing in what the board and what my colleagues here think would be best to serve the school. At the end of the day, we just need more support when it comes to our mental health and our students. It's something we experience on a day-to-day basis, and it's something that we are understaffed for in that area. So that is why I brought that to you today.
Mrs. Smith? So is it like the lack of a hire, is that really then attributed to, you think it's too specialized?
I couldn't tell you, because there have been no applicants, I can't
Oh, there isn't
speculate.
even an applicant.
No. To be entirely transparent with you, the ISD called me around December when we first posted this position and said, hey, we had a candidate for one of our positions that we think would be good for you, but we passed up on her, maybe give her a call. Gave that person a call, set up an interview with her, she canceled the day of the interview. That was the only interest I had. Again, didn't technically apply for our position, I cold called her. So no, we've had no, it's tough to speculate on that. I can only imagine, I'm only imagining based on the fact that we've had 0 applicants, that if we were to widen the candidate pool or allow a widening of the candidate pool, then we would attract new candidates.
Could it be attributed to the pay scale?
Could be a myriad of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like I said, because if I had a candidate pool that then turned it down, I'd love to ask them, those type of questions, but I don't have anything to even ask.
Go on, yeah.
Mrs. Smith, in regard to that, I think that counselors are looking for counseling type positions, and while that was a counseling type position, counselors aren't even gonna necessarily look at that. That's why I was suggesting yesterday to Ms. Vaughn, I think that we should open it to put it out for counselors, put it out for social workers. The only concern that I have is you've got restorative discipline protocol. If we're going with the 31A and the 31AA to help finance this position, it's directed at mental health, and it's mental health and discipline are 2 different areas. Now, as a counselor, the things that you were just talking about, those were all counseling type jobs, and when we had 2 counselors here, we had one that was taking care of those type of things, but counselors never ever did discipline.
Yeah, and I apologize.
Once you step into that role, it becomes,
Of course, and I apologize for a mistype or anything there, because I agree with you. The intent would not be to have anybody but Mr. Zimmerman and myself handle disciplines. We would be the disciplinarians in the building. I agree with you 100%. I promise you that must be an error in my typing, because no, we would not ask anybody to handle disciplinary things. We would ask for help with intervention steps, which would be different, right? So if Mr. Zimmerman or I already handled out discipline, and one of those intervention steps might be to hold a peace circle with a student, an interventionist would be qualified to host a peace circle. It just would not be making a disciplinary determination. So perhaps I meant it in that way, and I just worded it poorly, but I assure you we would never ask somebody who's not a disciplinarian to make a disciplinary judgment, that we wouldn't want to open that door for anybody. Bless you.
Any other questions?
You mentioned you had 0 applicants. Do you see cycles in hiring for school districts at the end of the year? People try to change schools, or is this something if you sat on it, you might see more people applying?
I mean, I can tell you as a person who has experience hiring a lot of different positions, including at least interventionist positions, that yes and no. What I can say is what I think might not attract people to this and create that surge in hiring is, again, the notification that it is grant funded. That is something that could be a barrier. Again, it's just tough to speculate because we didn't have any applicants, but I can tell you that those types of positions are usually less attractive than ones that people know come from the budget itself.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Spear.
Thank you.
Thank
Did
you.
you also then, did you just want to go ahead and talk about the curriculum for the history sports?
Thank you so much for letting
so that
me
we
jump
can-
all around
We
here.
do want you to, get on with your night.
I appreciate that, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we did mention that we were trying to add a couple of courses to the course curriculum, one of them being the academic support, which Ms. Narad's going to have to pull together for us in May. But for today, what I was hoping to talk to you about was the history of sports class. So this is something that is already approved for a semester under the course curriculum guide, and what we're hoping to do is expand this to a year-long class. Mr. Sosnowski has had over 20 years of experience building and compiling this class, and is very excited at the possibility of being able to turn this into a year-long class. I did talk about some of the units that he would be adding, such as the evolution of youth and high school sports, sports during the Cold War, great writers and sportscasters, and the history of basketball. I really love his use of the supporting text. He's going to have some graphic novels he's going to be using with them, some project-based learning there, as well as some traditional paper and pencil tests in order to check for understanding. But essentially, it's just an extension of the history of sports class, the idea that we are showing how sports can be reflected not just in the real world, but the real world impacts and reflects sports. Like these two things kind of feed off each other and are almost a sign of the times. And this is something that Mr. Sosnowski is very passionate about. I think it's an amazing class, and I'm excited at the possibility of being able to expand this to a full year.
This is good. First off, Suz is amazing at this class and yeah, very, very passionate. Is this something that you have in the curriculum already as a full year course? Or?
No, it's a semester course right now, so we would be asking to make it a full year.
I mean, I personally would be very supportive if we can get that magic number of 20 in there.
We have the number.
That's
if
awesome.
If we can get approval, we have the number.
Is there a cost to adding this in for the full year?
The cost would be the additional graphic novel that we would purchase, which has already been requested into our budget. But I think it's $300.
I'd be 100% in support of this. I've been in Suz's class when he's teaching this, and he is extremely passionate. And some of this, I mean, the kids are just absolutely amazed. They had no idea what's going on. So I'd be in support of this.
I can tell you too, just from peeking into that class too, it's really cool.
Mr. Spear,
Yes, ma'am.
I think it sounds good. Do you think in the fall we could have Mr. Suz do a presentation of this course to us?
I think he would love that. He's really excited. So I think yes, I would be happy to let him know that he would do that for us, and I guarantee you he'd be
That'd be,
excited.
That'd be great.
I guarantee he'd be very excited.
That would be
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Spear?
Thank you for being here all night.
Thanks for hanging around.
We're trying to get you out here
Thank you
earlier
for having me
though.
and for being flexible. I appreciate you. Thank
Mr.
you.
Spear, on that note, Mrs. Royster wanted to, I believe, speak to
Please.
a potential, elective.
Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Susie Royster, the choir director here at middle school and high school. And until a couple of years ago, I was music director at all three buildings. I probably had every one of your children. And well, I had Bowman's kids too. I didn't teach Bowman, but this is just one more plug for our music department, our choirs, and the new up-and-coming piano course. I was asked to create a new unique music class here at our high school level, and I came up with the Piano Music Theory Composition course. Many students were very excited to hear about this, and they immediately started sending Miss Norad emails. And she got 12 signed up. Many, many more emailed her, but because of academic courses and scheduling conflicts, many of them could not get on the roster. But then I was recently informed that we could not offer the course because of the board said 20 had to sign up for the class. First of all, the students that were very excited became very upset. I calmed them down today and started talking with more students. And throughout the day, between hallways, lunchroom, bands, and the other choirs, I came up with 24 names that still want to do it. And so, talking with Mr. Spear and Ms. Norad again, we decided I'm going to come in and speak with the board again and just give you a little bit of background on this course and what I have taught. Second, this is not the type of class where I put a textbook in front of the students and we read it and we take a little quiz and we handwrite it. Or it's not even the type of class where I stand in front of the choir and I'm looking at everybody and we're singing a song. Or I'm even at the piano and I'm looking at everybody singing a song. I am teaching them to place 10 fingers on 88 keys while they're looking at music, and I'm trying to teach them to read the notes. And we're all playing songs together in different rhythms, maybe all at the same time, maybe at different times, and we're all creating a whole lot of noise in one room. And I've got to try and hear them all. And I'm not creating a piano lab in my choir room, such as like at a university where I could go and plug in to each little keyboard and hear one little keyboard. I was thinking of getting maybe 8 digital keyboards and putting 2 students at each keyboard, and we could share to be a little more contained. And I would walk up to them and hear 2 hands on a keyboard or 1 at a time and teach each of these students with their hands on the keyboards. But not 20 in the classroom. Can't get 20 keyboards in there. We can't listen to 20 hands on keyboards at the same time. You can't teach 20 hands to play precisely at one time. I have taught singing, choir, playing the piano for 45 years. Yes, I was very young when I started. Truly, I was young. This is a passion for me. This is something I know very well. It's also a dying art, you guys. Do you know how difficult it is to find someone that can play the piano well? Do you know how hard it is to find someone that can play the piano anymore? I am called by schools and churches all the time to come and play for them, full time. They call our accompanist here, Mrs. Tabone, and try to lure her away from us because she's good and they need her bad. Give me the chance to try and teach our students how to play the piano. Who knows where this could lead them? They may love it so much they'll want to continue doing it and go further with it. And if they did love it so much and they wanted to continue, they might want to go on and do it in second semester. And we would have our year-long piano class. And we might continue growing some piano players. And I wouldn't have to search the state to find an accompanist all the time. We would have some great musicians again.
One of the things that Ms. Royster pointed out to me today, and thank you so much for speaking from the heart, I appreciate that, is just that our choir program is declining. Our music program is declining. We are in decline right now. And it would be very helpful, it would be very good to invest for us in the future in that, to have a course like this and to try and enrich some of our arts here. I know we have a lot of support and we're building our theater program, which is great. I know Mr. Wetzel runs an amazing show with band. Mr. Royster runs an amazing choir. It would be, if we are able to, it would mean a lot, I think, to the student population as well as the future of the arts programs here to try and enrich that. So I just wanted to speak in support to Ms. Royster as well, because I'm very passionate about that, being an art student myself, and I'm trying not to tear up, so.
I have a question.
Sure.
The out of the 24 students, were they across grades 8 through 12, or was this 9 through 12, or just 12, or what is it, the grade?
I had originally, we had originally said 9 through 12 because Ms. Nora thought the 8th graders had too many other things they needed to get in their year. Then I said, hey, why don't we open it up to 8th graders? Their schedules were already done for the year. If we could continue this, I would be more than happy to open it to 8th graders. So if we had the course, I would welcome them into it.
So you said how much of each of the digital keyboards?
I'm sorry?
How much are the digital keyboards?
How much are they?
Yeah, did you say that?
$320. I have a quote from Port Huron Music. They quoted me for 8 of them. I did a budget with the music that we would need, with the theory books, with headphones, and with the keyboards, with the little music stand on it. I didn't buy the benches, we can use chairs, and I think my budget was $3,800. Most all of that would stay there for however long we're running the piano course. The only thing we would need to rebuy every semester would be theory composition books, because each student would write in them and then they would be done. The piano books would stay there forever because we would keep reusing them.
Right.
Everything else would stay there forever too.
Mrs. Smith.
Ms. Fred?
So what would be the requirements to get into the course? I mean, I would think that they would need to have a piano or something at home where they can practice, because doing an hour long where really now it's only a half an hour because you have a partner sharing, what are going to be the prerequisites?
Actually, if you have 2 sitting at the keyboard, one is going to be looking at the music, learning to read, while the other one is sitting there playing and back and forth. So you're going to be getting some additional work while you're sitting there at the keyboard. So they're going to learn how to do that. There's going to be a slight requirement built in the syllabus to purchase your own keyboard for at home to practice. But you can pick these suckers up very cheap for at home. $40, $50. So I don't think that's a huge ask for you to be able to practice at home. You can even get rollout ones really cheap too. I don't have any laying around in a back room anywhere to give to them, but I bet if we started asking friends in bands and other choirs, they would be able to lend friends some too. That's the only drawback, that they would have to come up with a keyboard of some sort to practice on at home.
Okay, so are we looking to be approving this tonight, or are we?
No, Mrs. Royster and I actually have a scheduled meeting
Yes.
tomorrow. I
Okay.
think there was some excitement generated. I will be honest, this is a surprise that she's here tonight
Yes.
and sharing at this length. So I look forward to our meeting, Mrs.
Thank
Royster,
you.
tomorrow, so that we can, further our conversation
All
and
right.
bring, if this is a recommendation from the high school, to bring this to the board formally, if you will, in May.
Thank you, and thank you so much for tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank
It was nice seeing everybody.
What is the expectation for a student to start the program and leave the program? Like, where would you, are they starting with pretty much no piano experience, and then where would you expect them to be at the end of the semester?
There is one level of book to complete this one level of book. So a semester is, what, 9 weeks?
Closer to 18, yeah.
Oh, that's right, that's a quarter.
Yep.
18 weeks. So we could complete 2 levels of books, actually.
Okay.
So that's pretty much playing a chord in the left hand and a melody in the right hand. 2 or 3 different scales. Everybody can think back to their piano days. Basic warm-ups I teach at the very beginning, and 2 level books of reading the music. So you have to read music too in order to do this chord and the melody here.
Right.
So that would be written in the syllabus, very generically, like, so parents could read through it and understand it too.
But, I'll just say out loud, because I won't be there for the meeting, but what she mentioned is being able to play at church or stuff like that. I mean, it's another opportunity, like similar to our sports officiating class, where it gives our students opportunities in the real world to impact their communities, make some money, and do that kind of stuff. So,
There is another aspect of it too, leaving high school and being able to earn a little bit of an income.
yeah.
Ms. Fry, do you have another question?
Well, I think that it's important, obviously, that we know what the number is, you know, again, there are courses that are running lower, and part of it is the number of electives that are offered, and unfortunately, that's why you go up against the ed tech, and that kind of annihilates a little bit of your program, because we have so many students that are really good singers that then go into the ed tech center.
You mean the budget in, the initial budget?
No,
Oh,
Making a comment, I think.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, so first off, you know, when you're talking to these other 24, it's gotta be something that actually fits in a particular hour that you're looking at. I don't know what music theory and composition book that you're looking at, but we did offer that. We may have a book. McCluskey was the one that offered that. And unfortunately, it was an elective that went by the wayside because we are getting fewer and fewer students that are coming into the high school. And we have to look financially at what we can handle. Me personally, I played the accordion, and I'm learning piano right now on an electronic keyboard, and I'm loving it.
great.
So it's something that I certainly enjoy. And again, I think that we need more information, but I would love to see something like this offered if we can afford it.
Sounds like Ms. Ron will be getting back to us.
Yes, and Mrs. Royster, we do appreciate your enthusiasm, of course, in promoting your program. I mean, we really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mrs.
Mr.
Smith. I have one more clarifying question, probably from Ms. Vaughn here. So based off the conversation that we had earlier from Ms. Fred about how curriculum needs to be presented, would we be approving the curriculum even if we don't offer the class? We could still go so far as to approve piano science as an option, and then
That
if
is
the
my
budget's not
understanding
there.
as of tonight. That
Yeah,
is
then
my-
if the
yes.
budget's not there, so be it, but at least we could get that.
Yes, you can get it into
approved
the
and-
course curriculum guide,
Yeah.
from what I'm understanding.
Yeah, okay. Okay, just make sure I understood that.
Yes,
Sure.
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you both.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Mr. Spear, thank you.
Just a quick reminder for finance, Mr. Wade is on finance, he's not here. Mr. Eckert is going to sub in for him, and then it's Ms. Fry and myself.
Can we turn over to Kathy? For finance.
Do you want me?
Which
All
I
right,
started.
Kathy.
Okay, we'll go over checks written, if you guys have any, from the drive, the reports from the drive, if you have any checks, any questions on
I
that?
did have one check.
Okay.
45886. Actually, I might have two, sorry, my bad.
Four, 5886, and that is for Duro Last Roofing, high school roof repair, for $438. Leak was determined to be condensation built up in the HVAC unit.
Because we still have a warranty on the high school roof, whenever I have a leak on the membrane, I call Duralast out, because if there's a warranty, they'll take care of it. In this particular case, we had water that was coming into the kitchen, and we couldn't pinpoint where it came from. We thought it was around one of the exhaust fan curbs, but it was determined that it wasn't, so therefore, we paid for it.
Oh my.
Any given year when there's,
and I guess I have one more, sorry.
Sure.
This might even be able to speak to this one too. 45917. It was for, technology services, sound planning and communication.
We had a couple there. We added a speaker to one of the admin offices here at the middle school. We also repaired an outside speaker here at the middle school.
Okay.
And then depending on how much the cost was, I believe it was $1,800, I could be wrong. We added 2 exterior speakers to OP at the gym, so that during a blue point it could be heard.
It
while
was
there
around 7,000, that's why I was asking.
Oh, then, I'm sorry, that's not me.
There's 6 different projects that were paid for with that check. And the OP outside speakers were $1,686, so you were close. Yep, so $3,154 was for, it says phone issues.
I was wondering if it had anything to do with that.
So there must have been a combined, because the
That's what I was
IT
wondering.
team also had called sound
Yep,
planning out
that's
for
correct.
another issue, so.
Okay.
So that's about half of it, because like Kathy said.
Yep,
mine was around
IT,
3,000.
yeah.
And then did that fix, I know we were talking about the OP PA system, was that in that too?
Those issues were addressed on a separate invoice
Okay, cool.
earlier. Yes, the Crackley, I think it was Crackley.
Thank you, Kathy, that was all I have for a chat.
I only have one, and it's the 45905, it was to the MASB, $889.20. I think I know what it's for, but I had a clarifying question just after you bring that up.
What was that number again, Ms. Crum?
45905.
Yep, this is to MASB, Board of Ed Workshop.
Okay, is any of that reimbursable?
It sure is, and it's,
That's what I'm liking to hear.
yep, and up to $100 per all y'all's classes. And they were reimbursed, in fact, the money hit the account yesterday, so. Yeah.
That's even better.
Yep.
And then, just so that the board members know, when board members are taking a class, we have a board policy that says that they're supposed to do a very short presentation on a couple of things that we learned. So, just FYI. That was it? Thank you.
Anyone else? Next, you want to take a moment to review the account balances that are in the drawing?
So I think that we actually do these individually, so for the athletic accounts, does anybody have any, Adam or Tanea, did you guys have any questions regarding athletics?
I did not.
Okay, we have the check register. Actually, no, excuse me, high school account balances. Did you have any questions regarding high school account balances? Mr. Eckert? Okay.
No.
Okay. The middle school account balances? Mrs. Smith, you're fine?
Oh, hold on. Might be one question. Oh, I see, grade 8 is over to high school. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Eckert?
I'm all set.
Okay, OP account balances?
Nope, I'm good.
Mr. Eckert, good.
All set, yeah.
The summary of the expenditures? Mr. Eckert?
Oh. So we use the Google Docs here.
Good, okay. And the summary of the revenues? Mrs. Smith is good. Mr. Eckert?
accident?
Nice sideways view there. And then the vendor checklist, we just ended up taking care of. I know that Mr. Wade typically at this point tells us where we're at percentage-wise compared to where we were a year ago. I was not aware that he wasn't gonna be here, so I didn't do that, but I can have that ready for our next meeting.
He was hoping to be here, he's tracking.
I figured that.
Hopefully they're doing well.
Absolutely. And does that take care of everything for you then, Mrs. Merrifield?
Thank you.
Perfect.
I'm just waiting for another recommendation sheet. You'll just hold for a second.
Oh, it's not in here?
The recommendation, I believe it's in the board's packet.
I think it is, yeah.
Thank you. Yep, it was in front of you. I just didn't have a copy, so.
I got it.
I'll set. Okay, so this is going to go on to our recommendation for auditor. After the close of the fiscal year, June 30th, an audit of all accounts of the district will be made annually by an independent certified public accountant, policy 6830. This year, 2024-2025, we received 3 responses to our RFP. I met with the finance staff, and based on our evaluation rubric, we proposed staying with Lewis & Nuff. We've used Lewis & Nuff for several years, and based on the following policy and our evaluation rubric, they meet the criteria for having the best proposal. Below are the comparative scores. We do have Rosalind Prestige and Company, score of 96, Lewis & Nuff, CPAs, 99, and Gabridge and Company, 96.
Mrs. Smith? I think that part of the reason that we're looking at this is that it's been recommended as best practice that you switch auditors after every few years just to see if something has been missed. So I think that that's actually why we're looking at it right now. Is that what you understand as well?
I think we have to employ them like every year. Right?
Yeah, so we did go out for the RFP. This was the year. We were encouraged by, again, I was encouraged by the board to, go through the RFP process with our auditing firms, and we did that. We met together as a central office finance team, and we went through evaluation rubric, and our recommendation is bringing Lewis & Nuff to continue to work with Lewis & Nuff.
How long have we been working with them?
I think it's been over 10 years, I think, for sure. But we based it upon our evaluation rubric, which we were, obviously, that is best practice, and our rubric and our scores, Lewis & Nuff came on top as 99. As Lewis & Nuff they are the auditing firm who we believe, again, per our rubric as well, bring the most experience to the school district. With working over, they work with over 30 school districts. They scored the highest on the rubric, ultimately.
I'm trying to remember.
They were not the lowest as far as the lowest bid, if you will. And Kathy does have that information, so she's ready to share that with you if you want additional information. Yes,
Please.
of course. So Kathy, just share out the proposal bids with them.
All the proposals?
You can share the proposals where they came in as
Oh,
far as,
The rubric that we did? Sorry, or the actual proposals?
Well, I'm sorry, you want to highlight the different areas, right? So,
yes.
like the bids, I'm assuming that you would like to know the cost of the bids.
Yes,
coming
okay,
in.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Long day. Okay, so Rosalind and Prestige, the average cost over a 3-year period was $63,750. Lewis & Nuff, the average cost over a 3-year period, because this is a 3-year contract, is $71,200. And Cambridge is at $84,010 over a 3-year period. When you break those costs over the 3 years, the Rosalind and Prestige comes at $21,250 average every year,
Lewis and Knopf is $23,733 average each year. And the Gaybridge comes in at $28,003 cost average over 3 years. So the two, of course, price contenders is the Rosalind Prestige. They are actually $22,483 less over the 3-year period, but divide that by 3 years, it's $827 more a year. But as a group, the 4 of us, we felt Rosalind Prestige only had a number of 14 schools in their experience. So we score them lower for experience and qualification, whereas Lewis and Knopf has 31 schools, so over double what they have. So we just felt that the $827 cost was just worth the experience that they have. And I just want to add too, just in learning, my very first audit last year was after, I can tell you it's very extensive. I actually already have the field list of things that are sent to them ahead of time. When they're here, I'm telling you, they look at just about everything. And then as a bonus, at the end, all this data is uploaded on the CEPI FID site. So I think that stands for the Federal Internal Database. So every year, the Financial Information Database, I'm sorry. So our audit is keyed in, and it has to match what the CEPI says, and everything ties out. So I feel like they do an awesome job, and they're very extensive and thorough, and they know our our school finance and the way we're structured. I do a lot of networking with other business managers, and I know the business manager from Lapeer often has mentioned that they use a different CPA firm for their audit, and she mentioned that she's constantly teaching them school finance. So a lot of these audit firms, even though I'm sure they're great, we're just looking for that school experience, because I can testify it's very unique. This modified accrual accounting is quite unique. And to have someone to come in with experience that can audit that and speak to that, I think is just a great that we have them to partner with.
Mrs. Smith, I agree. They are fantastic. And maybe I'm under a misunderstanding, but I thought it was best practice that we should be changing auditors.
No, I think we recommended that before.
Right.
I'm trying to remember when it was. It may have been before the time.
It was definitely before the John's time.
Okay. I just know that last year, my recollection was just that we were moving forward with the RFP process this year.
Right.
Yes, that's what I do know, but if you have more narrative behind that, then I wasn't here.
From MASB.
MASB.
Was it from MASB?
Yeah, so is that something that maybe we can check on?
Yeah.
Get clarified before?
Well, I'd like to know for sure how long we've worked with them.
Yeah.
And if it is a recommendation from MASB and even maybe from our legal to switch every so often. Because I know, like in the business world, right, you want to make sure you're whoever you're working with is doing it right and stuff. So I think can we look at that?
So how many years, I just want to make sure I have all of the.
How many years we've been working with
legal,
them right now?
Yeah, legal review, like legal.
We can talk to Scott or Brad Fanasik at MASB and get their input on that too.
So how many years, and just like the MASB stance on that?
That sound like a good start?
I think that's great. I'm fully in support of the Lewis and, is it?
Knopf.
Thanks. I'm fully in support of them as long as we are working with what is best practice and what's been recommended for us by MASB. So, and I'm sure that that's where it came from in the past.
Yeah, because I'm remembering it too.
Yes, so I think that we need to get that clarified.
Yep.
And if it's not an issue, I don't have a problem with Lewis and
have
six-
anything more to add?
You look at the scores, and I don't know the particulars of the rubric, but you have 96, 99, it's not like you have a 65 and a 99. Are we able to differentiate the firms? They all have school districts.
Mhm.
The size of the school district, does that matter, as far as experience goes? Because it sounds like that's your main point, right, is that they have the most experience, but, say they have experience out here in Utica or in Lapeer, and the other firms have experience in Utica or somewhere else, those are bigger districts. Have you guys taken that into account, or?
We sure did, and also the other two firms were, one was from Almont and one was from Grand Rapids. So logistically, Lewis and Knopf is from Davidson area, so they're local. And honestly, if you look at, their scope of all the other schools that they audit, it's like pretty much all around our area, all in Lapeer County, up towards the thumb. It's very impressive, their scope of work and qualifications.
And I'll be honest too, just fiscally responsible, I know we didn't go with the cheapest, but again, being fiscally responsible, also not going with the most expensive. And I felt like Lewis and Knopf, again, kept things pretty even and very competitive. So it's another reason, being fiscally responsible.
Okay, thank you.
And Mrs. Smith, if I may just strongly caution that we can't really wait too long on this. They're already trying to schedule for preliminary and for the audit. All of these schedules get booked very fast, so.
I'll try to find the answers and then we can bring it to, we'll bring the, the feedback
Finding it
to
to
the
the
board.
board meeting.
Yeah, at the board meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
they can make the decision.
Awesome.
Okay, sure. So is that a recommended, or is it just, because we do have a recommended by committee, so I'm not
I
sure.
think that we need to get further
that tabled?
clarification before recommendation, yeah.
Yeah.
So no recommendation at this time.
But I think that we would still be able to vote on it Monday if we have the answer.
Yeah, if you have the information,
Yes.
yeah.
I think so.
Just in our notes as we do our work session, discussed and recommended. It just sounds like we can't put a number with that at this time.
And I think before we move away from finance, I might need to just mention that I won't be here Monday for the meeting. Laura and I are going to the MBS, so the business managers annual conference. So we'll be leaving Monday right after work and gone for 4 days, well, through Thursday. We'll be back Friday. So I'm super excited, and I hope to come back with a world of information to share with all of you, particularly anything on budget.
And we want you to get that information.
Yes,
Kathy, so,
yes.
good. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The next one. So according to policy 3111, the board shall, upon the advice of the superintendent.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For budget update, we
Budget
talked
update.
yesterday about,
Yep.
budget meeting and stuff like that. Are we talking about that now, or?
The
We need to
budget.
schedule a date for it.
For the budget update, yeah, I was just going in the the order of the finance. I have the interventionist next for the ACS interventionist director. Just the sheet so that we can make the recommendation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, because we had Mr. Spear, we wanted to
I got
respect
you.
his time.
Okay.
So I just
My
wanted
bad.
to go through. No worries, no worries. I know we juggled a few agenda
We did.
items. No worries.
I was confused.
No worries. According to policy 3111, the board shall, upon the advice of the superintendent, consider the advisability of creating a new position or of increasing the number of professional staff members in the existing position. Almont High School requires additional administrative student support. 31AA and 31A grant funding allows the district to fund an administrative position focused on mental health and at-risk students in compliance with the grant guidelines without impacting the general fund.
Mrs. Smith, would you have any questions regarding that? I'm taking over for.
You're good, you're fine, you're doing a great job. I'm good.
Okay, Ms. Director?
Not 100% sure what to do now.
Oh, no, just, are you in favor of the interventionist? Did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, and the only thing that I would say is that you've gotta be really cautious, you can't have discipline in there because it won't qualify for 31. So I think that, we need to see a copy of the revision of that,
Sure.
when we vote.
No problem.
But other than that, I think that we can go with the 3-0 that, yes,
Okay,
we're
perfect.
in support.
Great, thank you.
And I truly have a frog.
Okay. All right, thank you. And for budget update, just wanting to make sure that we have some time after meeting with the Finance Committee this past week. It's been recommended that we do a budget update, a separate meeting, a special meeting in the next month here at the end of May. So we wanted you to look at your calendars to see if we could set a date at this time. So the proposed dates that I did have, that I have available, and I looked at the district calendar, May 27th is open, and also May 29th could be open, but there is a band concert. I just didn't know if any of your children were participating in the band. That's 5th through 7th grade. I just wanted to make sure nobody was falling under that umbrella. So that would leave May 27th and May 29th open. We could do anywhere from 6 to 7 o'clock, whatever would work for the board for a special meeting.
So if everybody would take a look at that information, let's talk about the 27th first, is that, did you
It's
say
open.
that's van, but that's one that is open?
It is available, yeah.
Okay, so everybody taking a look at that, this is something that we typically hold a special meeting for, because it's really important that we get an idea of what the budget looks like at that point in time, because we have to have our decision on a budget at the end of June, and it has to go out to the state. It can't be delayed. So it will then give us a month to ask questions, finalize some things, get some things clarified. So, Mr. Eckert, are you available on the 27th? As you check, Mr. Burrow?
I coach T-ball until 6:35, so if we could make it later in the.
Or 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, I would have no issue.
Okay. Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
7 works for me on the 27th.
Okay, it works for me. So right now, I think that we can schedule the 27th for a special meeting then for.
For budget.
Adam,
for
is that
budget.
good for you?
If we can do it later, yeah.
Is 7 o'clock okay?
Yes.
The location.
It'll be here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, any other questions under finance?
I'm good.
We're going to move on to policy, resignations and retirements. The Board of Education may agree to a resignation, retirement at any time after a replacement, if necessary, suitable to the school administration and the board is obtained, provided that the circumstances underlying the resignation and retirement are valid in the opinion of the board and warrant a search for replacement. Mrs. Adrienne Shiflett is resigning from her position as CI teacher at Almont Middle School at the end of the school year in order to move closer to family. Mr. Stephen Shiflett is resigning from his position as Director of Student Success at the end of the school year in order to relocate to be closer to family. Mrs. Kelly Ebley is retiring from her position as Counseling Secretary after 19 years in our district. Mrs. Ebley is looking forward to spending more time with her grandchildren.
Just as a reminder, policy is Mrs. Letarius, Adam, and myself.
Everyone go with that?
Good.
Good.
Oh, good.
The Board of Education approves all personnel. Almont High School is in need of a resource room paraprofessional. Mr. Spear is happy to recommend Mr. Michael Kepler. Mr. Kepler is the girls varsity soccer coach here at Almont Community Schools and is happy to join the staff at Almont High School. Mrs. Michelle Winkler is being recommended for the head coaching position for varsity volleyball at Almont High School. Mrs. Winkler has experience coaching multiple sports and has played collegiate volleyball as well as being an AHS alum.
Everyone all set with that? Good.
Thank you. of teacher change in pay. In order to be eligible to advance from one lane on the salary schedule to a higher lane, a teacher must make written proof of the completion of courses and/or degree requirements in the form of an official transcript of credits from the institution from which the credits were earned. This is the master agreement between the Board of Education and the Almont Education Association. The facts, Carly Connor is moving from BA to BA plus 15, and Gina Schwake is moving from BA plus 18 to masters.
All set?
Also,
All good.
Thank you. The Board of Education approves the student handbooks at each school. The policies and procedures contained in the handbook serve as a guide for our students. By approving changes to the handbooks, the changes become a part of district policy. During the April work session today, changes to the handbook were discussed. Handbooks and changes were also posted in Google Drive for the board's review.
Mrs. Smith, clarifying question on the school handbook updates. Does that include the phone tree?
Yes.
Cell
Yes.
phones?
Yes.
Okay, I had a question on that, if I can ask right now.
You're the chair, so you
Yeah.
can speak freely.
So, one of my questions on this was, are there any neighboring districts doing this? And if so, what's been the feedback with the phone trees in the classrooms?
Okay, and I don't know the answer to that, so I would have to research that for you.
One of my other questions was, how did it come to fruition in the case that there are neighboring districts that are doing this? I'm just wanting to collect a little bit more information.
may I comment, or?
You can ask a clarifying question. No, you're on the committee.
Yeah, he's on the
Ask away.
committee, Adam's on the
Ask away.
committee.
My understanding was Armada had recently done that.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty contentious, if I recall correctly. So, it's only neighboring one. I was going to ask a question is, do we have kind of a comparison with what Armada did versus what we're doing as far as the phone trees and the policy there?
I'd like to know what Dryden and Emily said you're doing too.
Yeah.
So they're also, they've already implemented that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay,
I'd like
okay,
to know.
right. Okay,
Just if they're in our surrounding area or whatnot.
right, absolutely.
So if we find this information, and just for me to clarify, to bring this to the table on Monday night, so we can approve handbook changes, or I just want to make sure I understand.
I have some other questions too. I don't know, do you want?
You can, yeah, what are some of the questions there?
So on, one of the things I know that we had talked about in the past, prior to some of you guys being on the board, is making the handbooks more uniform to each building. And so some of the stuff that I noticed is like in the OP book, like you start with the table of contents, middle school has table of contents, then the high school goes to BOE letter, the principal letter, vision, mission, disciplinary table of contents. So for me, looking at them, I was trying to see how we can make the handbooks reflective to the fact that we're one district. So to me, when I look at each one, it almost feels like it's its own separate district. Like it's kind of siloed. You know, like it makes sense for them to be slightly different in the way that like, oh, he did, there's like the alphabet, which makes sense, right? There's little kids, right? For their table of contents. So the OP has all of their staff in the building listed in their handbook. The middle school and the high school don't. The OP has the district calendar in their handbook. The middle school and the high school don't. So I'm just thinking that if we are collectively looking at being a district and working together and being one, to me this would be a really great place to start. This is just my opinion. Each of the covers are different. Maybe that's fine and whatnot. Maybe it's just how it's formatted and put together. But I think it might show some unity like across the board. So that's just one thing that I kind of noticed. I would like some changes in the Board of Education letter, if we could look at that. I don't know if we could have any input on that at all. So each of them were kind of written very similar, but there were some components of it that I think I would like to maybe work on with you or work on as a team from the board's perspective. So that was just, something that I noticed. I don't know if anybody else knows anything or not. I know it's a lot, sorry.
I think it's a good point, especially with if we can find some type of cohesion with the handbooks throughout. From a professional standpoint, that would look really sharp and help us stand out a little bit more as a district.
Any thoughts, Adam?
Do we have a drop dead day we have to get the handbooks completed and approved by? Because it's kind of a whole tear up, right? But to make the three of them line up and to be cohesive, we'd be tearing up at least 2 of the handbooks. That could take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort. If it's approved this year, do we have till next year to do it? Do we not really have a date this year by the time they have to be approved? How does that work?
Well, I know that, if I could speak to some of this, like, I feel like some of this is just, table of contents, Board of Education letter, making sure our current board members, all of that can go into next year's, and that can be solidified. What I would like to clarify, so to your point, I feel like it's a work in progress, and there's already been some improvements. It's not perfect, but going into next year, some of the formatting that I think you're referencing, Mrs. Smith, I think can be very much hands down. This is what I want to see, table of contents, Board of Education letter, that needs to be tweaked. I can work with you on that. Some of those are just standard pieces throughout the handbook, and we can do that. That's not the problem. But aligning everything, because we do have differences in buildings, that's going to maybe take a little bit more time. I guess I would just need, for clarification's sake, the handbook changes that were proposed to you tonight, is that something that the board is going to get behind, or are we looking to table this to get more information into May? And maybe it's just the high school. For example, it looks like you want more information on cell phone tree and some of the feedback from the schools. So are we tabling, high school? I just need clarification on what we're doing.
I would like to table the whole thing.
You want to table everything?
I would like to approve what is actually going to be put into production. Like, I don't want to approve it, with, hey, we're going to make all these changes and get, to me, when I'm looking at something to approve, I know, for the high school, and just for example, with the board members being listed incorrectly, and, oh yeah, we're gonna fix that, I would rather approve something that I know this is the final product.
And I
This is what is gonna go.
And please help me out, board, if you can. So I don't believe, or from my knowledge, it doesn't get updated until we approve the new handbook for the next year. Is that correct with the board meetings?
That's right.
Thank you. I just, it wasn't because we wanted to leave it that way.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, but the others, so the OP and the middle school one were up to date. They had all the new members and stuff like that. So I guess I was just thinking, when I'm looking at this, to make a decision about approving it, it would be what is actually going to be approved. Does that make sense, Mr. Eckert?
Yes, absolutely.
So to me, I
The
like.
whole thing, the formatting, everything, and then along with the changes, you want everything done at the one time.
I think that would be helpful for us to look at what is actually going to be put into play.
Okay, and as much as possible, or formatting allows, I will do our due diligence to, I guess, bring that forward to you in the May session, and giving us that time.
Okay, yeah, we can look at it.
Yeah, to see if they can, and I guess I can't speak to all the formatting, I just know that, I would like to see that, each of the buildings can put those portions of the handbook,
Right, and
in the, I guess, as much as they can align it, in that order. What I can't promise is everything, of course, going to be the same, policies or expectations for building. That I can't assure you, until we have more time to work with our administrators. Does that make sense? But the formatting, yes. Everything that was brought to you tonight, it's up to the board to move forward with that approval. Is that fair? Or if there's something else that you're asking for, please let me know.
Mrs. Smith, I just want to caution, in us working with them, I think that our expectation is, if you want this in a certain way, that is shared with Ms. Bond, but it's her job to do that. It's not our job to be working with her to do that. And that's her job to work with her administrative team to make sure that that's happening.
I don't disagree with you. The only thing I do want to work on is the letter from the Board
I
of
agree.
Education.
Mhm.
That is something that I do feel we have
Mhm.
input on.
Mhm.
And so that is the area I would choose to work on. But just for clarification, I know I've had, we have been talking about and stuff, and so it's a work in progress, and I understand that. I just want to continue that work in progress and get further.
Is it, when do we have to have the handbook completed and
Well,
voted
you know,
on?
it's the start of the school year, right? You know, as soon as possible, probably. So if we have some, we do have some time because this is going into the 25-26 school year. So I just think typically, right, it's around this time that we start looking at the handbook. Obviously, administrators are presenting the changes to you, so we're looking to get those approved.
Okay, so it is doable then in that time frame?
Yeah, it's
possibly?
doable. It's definitely doable, and again, I would like this sooner than later, so this would be, you know, more of a priority. I'm hoping in May. I will, of course, communicate to the board if it looks to be that we need to extend the time, just because I want to be respectful of, again, maybe a formatting issue that I'm not even aware of, but secretaries have to redo it. I just want to be respectful of a lot of people's time.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chairs?
Yes,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
yes.
Just so I fully understand the phone tree concept, are these like, I mean, most cell phones these days are what, like $1,200? Like around 100, I think.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
so
$1,000.
Yeah.
if
At least.
they're putting them on, like, are they secured? Like, if one
Think
is
of it
like,
as a, like a overhead door shoe rack. That's basically what it is. It's like an over door with a little spot for the shoe.
so like, if a phone is not on my possession and is damaged or stolen, is the school responsible
They
for
were
it?
not.
So,
That
But we're
question-
requiring them to put it there, so we wouldn't take that responsibility.
there's on the live Q&A,
I answered the question in that, so,
Okay.
but I will reference the policy.
yeah, I was gonna say, I saw it too under
Thank you.
the policy.
Yep.
Do you want me to just read it, or do you wanna go ahead?
Sure. No, go ahead.
Okay, I
You're
was just
fine.
gonna
Yeah,
say,
you're
I saw it,
fine.
and I just-
Yeah, this is what I answered.
Per
today.
policy 5136, the board assumes no responsibility for theft, loss, or damage to or misuse or unauthorized use of personal communication devices brought onto its property.
Does that also stand for the teacher whose room it is?
That was going to be my question
It's
for the teacher.
So like if you're in my classroom and I'm the teacher and somebody accidentally grabs somebody else's phone and it drops and shatters, is the teacher also not responsible? Like, I'm just wondering, like you just asked, is there any liability on the teacher or anything for being there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I don't know.
No, not that I'm aware of, and I pulled the policy just so if the students are bringing their personal communication devices to school, the board, our district is not liable or not responsible for any of the stolen or lost damage to the property.
But you're going to compel them to put it on the door in this, I think there's one in the high school, in the media center. You're going to compel the students to put it on the door and say it falls, something happens, there's thousands of dollars worth of cell phones there that would possibly be damaged. You know, it's
I probably go out on a limb and say it's probably not gonna be covered, but I can check in with our SETSEG insurance to see if there's any maybe additional verbiage that would help clarify.
Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry.
Clarifying
I think that as you look, students always have the ability to put these in their lockers.
That's
So
another thing. Yeah,
if
that's
they
correct.
are concerned about what's gonna happen on a door, they have the ability to lock these up in their lockers. Hopefully not jamming their lockers so that their lockers are open. So that's always an option.
Mrs. Smith, I'm not sure who to address this to. I just have some information to share on another option. My granddaughter attends Avondale Middle School, and they have pouches. The cell phones go in the pouch, and they're magnetized and locked up, so it's on them all day long, but they can't access it. At the end of the day, they get the magnet unlocked, and they're free to take it. So it's just, there are other options besides a tree. So just, you know, they're expensive, but if the student loses them, they have to pay for replacement. But there's just like share.
How long has that been in place now?
Oh, quite a few years.
Okay.
Yeah, quite a few years.
What school? Kathy, did you, I'm sorry. what school?
Avondale Middle School.
Avondale.
Did you have another question?
I'm gonna do a little bit of research on that,
Absolutely.
yeah. Because, I guess I do have one more quick one. The reason we're doing this is because teachers are unable to enforce it in the classroom, correct? Like, they're unable to do the discipline of, hey, your phone's out, I'm removing it from your person, hey, your phone's out, it's going to the principal, hey, you can't bring it to the building, I'm giving it to your parent.
I think there's just been a lot of.
This is just easier.
They're just trying to make it more uniform because
Yeah.
it's inconsistent and it's hard when
Right.
you have, so our high school students have 6 classes. So even, one of your, so Mrs. Smith's child walks into 6 different classes in a day. There might be 6 different rules that are attached to electronic communication devices, and I think it's becoming more of an issue, more disruption, a lot of inconsistency. So that is what Mr. Spear brought to you today. And the staff is also, I think they're about to lose their minds, that they just want to try to teach. They want to instruct without crazy distractions. So I think that's what you heard from Mr. Spear today. So that's why my recommendation is, of course, to support the high school administration and the staff so that they can do their job and teach their kids, and that's the primary responsibility. Our students are given lockers, to Ms. Sue Fred's point. They're given, lockers to lock up their personal property. And then if this is another option, the cell phone tree, that is another option. And if everybody's consistent with that, the kids know the expectations. Can I assure you that there wouldn't be a stolen cell phone at some point during the year? I can't say that. But if you're asking, are we liable per our policy, I wanted to make sure that that was stated. We are not liable. The students are choosing to bring their devices to school. So, but if there's any other further follow-up that you need on that end, otherwise I'll be checking it. Sounds like you want me to reach out to some schools to get some feedback on how the cell phone trees are working.
Yes.
So if I have that correct, I can certainly do that. But if there's anything else, please let me know.
Thank you.
I have a question on that. So you just said that there's 6 different rules. Like, we have a policy, so it's just each classroom is doing their own.
Yeah, so we could have a teacher that would be more flexible, if you will, and allow the cell phone usage. It could be where, teachers, and again, it's during the time where they are designated probably, right? They're designating for cell phone use. And then you have other teachers who are saying, don't bring it into my classroom. So I feel like there's inconsistency, and I think that's what Mr. Spear was trying to also articulate. There's inconsistencies to class to class, and I think I have a couple parents here that could probably attest to that. So, and again, I think it's a little bit easier at the OP and middle school because I know at the middle school, they are to keep the cell phones in their lockers, so that doesn't become a bigger problem. In OP, we really don't have that issue.
Mrs. Smith? I think that one of the things that we also have to recognize as a board, first and foremost, we're an educational institution. And when you have students that are bringing their cell phones out and now they're caught, at the high school level, it's not going to be, give me your cell phone. They're going to argue with you. You've now disrupted the whole class, the whole flow of what you've been teaching. It's a challenge, I know, at the high school level, for sure. And it's something that they're constantly dealing with. And you have parents that are angry because their kids don't have their phone, and phone calls being made and having to address all of that. So just states are going to this. I know that the Governor Whitmer has been looking at something for the state of Michigan that states this, that cell phones are not allowed in the classroom.
Or they want to limit the use, yeah.
Yes,
They're gonna
so,
do
I saw that.
So,
Yeah, I
this
think I
is
shared that
something that
before,
we're
yeah.
moving towards because it does not help educate students when there are cell phones allowed in schools. So I think that we have to be aware of that as a board. First and foremost, we're an educational institution.
Everyone, any other questions, Adam? Okay.
So, okay. Recording of meetings, this was shared with you. You should be able to view the views actually for our meeting time. I did put this together with the help of Mr. Colin Allen, if you can hear me. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for allowing us to put this together and to demonstrate to the board that our views, and you can see the range here for both work sessions, board meetings, our organizational meeting at 71 views. I feel like we're, are doing our due diligence, and I do believe we're having community interest in this. So I would like to, after meeting with Mrs. Smith, just to recommend that we continue to monitor and review this for the next 6 months to see if this is something that we're going to embed into policy. Okay, so is everyone okay with that?
I'm on
So
board.
we'd like to continue to, yeah, we'd like to continue.
I like
to do
it,
this.
yeah,
Okay.
continue.
Okay. All right, the next one, the board adopts bylaws and policies for organization and operation of the board and district. Bylaws and policies may be adopted, amended, and repealed at any meeting of the board, provided the proposed adoption, amendment, or repeal shall have been proposed at a previous board meeting, and once proposed shall have remained on the agenda of each succeeding board meeting until approved or rejected. Bylaw 0131.1, the district's policy service Neola has provided the following new and replacement policies. This is the third reading. We have bylaw 0131.1, bylaws and policies revised. Policy 1430, 3430, leaves of absence. Policy 2340, field and other district-sponsored trips. This is going to be one that I just, to make a special note to the board, that you'll receive more information, clarity on. Just want to make note of that, but it must remain on the agenda. Policy 5320, immunization, revised. Policy 5330, use of medications, revised. Policy 5330.01, epinephrine, auto injectors, revised. Policy 5350, student health, well-being, and suicide prevention, revised. Policy 5460, graduation requirements, revised. You will also get clarity, additional clarity on this policy. Policy 8320, personnel files, revised. Additional clarity will be provided to the board, as well as policy 8500, food services, revised. Additional clarity in this policy as well. Policy 8640, transportation for field and other district-sponsored trips, rescinded. After, I just want to make a special note and a thank you to our policy committee. We have decided that we are going to continue to review and discuss our policies. It's going to be scheduled right before our board work session, so we're going to be committed to doing policy review right before the work session. So that'll be a 5 o'clock meeting moving forward. So the decision, again, to get some more clarity came out of our policy committee today and per my recommendation. So that's where it's at.
Questions? We're all good on this?
No.
All set.
Thank you. All right, professional development committee. Effective October 1st, 2019, Section 101 of the State School Aid Act was amended to include new provisions. Local education agencies, both traditional and charter, may count up to 38 hours of professional development for teachers as hours, days of pupil instruction, if all the listed requirements are satisfied. Professional development of any length may count as instructional hours, but to count as an instructional day, it must exceed 5 hours in a single day per subsection 10A. We'd like to count some of our professional development time as instructional time. To do this, an advisory committee must be appointed to make sure all the legal requirements are satisfied. Once the board authorizes the development of the committee, administrators will send invitations to gen ed teachers, special ed teachers, support staff, parents.
Any questions on this? Okay, we're all set.
Next up, we have the biennial election resolution. The Board of Education is required to designate a representative to participate in the intermediate school district's biennial election and to identify the intermediate school board's candidates. It supports by resolution. This is Public Act 419 of 2004, MCL 380.614. The biennial election of Lapeer County Intermediate School District will be held on Monday, June 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. The members of the ISD board will be elected by an electoral body composed of one person designated by the board of each of the constituent school districts. In accordance with Section 6142 of the revised code, the board must adopt a resolution which designates its representative to the electoral body and direct the person to vote on behalf of the board for specific candidates the board chooses to support for each position to be filled on the ISD board. The representative is obligated to vote as directed on at least the first ballot taken by the electoral body. The revised code also provides that the board consider the resolution designating its representative to the electoral body at a prior public meeting before adopting it. The board is fulfilling this obligation this evening. The attached biannual election resolution ensures compliance with the law. The resolution ensures our compliance with the current election law.
Any questions on this?
Very good. Okay.
Don't we have to decide who the individual is? Sorry, Mrs. Smith.
Do that now or we vote? Is it,
It's just two.
all right, when we vote?
I think that it's usually recommended now, and then we vote on it at the board meeting.
Okay.
And Mrs. Smith, I would be willing to do that if you need somebody. If not, I know we have some youngsters here that I'm sure can manage that very well.
This is, just to make sure, the resolution only is to be considered at this meeting. We'll adopt the resolution at the regular meeting in May.
Right, but the
So you're saying-
resolution, then when you adopt it, has to have somebody.
Somebody attached to it, and you usually decide at this meeting?
I think
Oh, okay, so we
usually
could
do that.
appoint Sue, yeah?
You said you're good with that, Ms.
I'd be fine with that, I did that before, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
The Board of Education may accept non-resident students into our schools via 105, 105C guidelines as outlined in the People Accounting Manual provided by the State of Michigan. Per the outline and information provided, should there be more applicants than space is open for the limited grades, a lottery will take place the day after school choice closes, and any students not placed will be on a waiting list. Priority will be given to students that currently have siblings attending Almont Community Schools and those students who have attended Almont Preschool in 24-25. I did attach my recommendation for school of choice. I know that the board was looking for some additional information, and after meeting with Mrs. Smith, if you saw my attachment, I did have a recommendation for grades K through 5. I did point out the class optimum and the class size maximum, so you could kind of see where my recommendation was coming. I also added a few notes here that I wanted to share with the board, with the fall count being at 1390, the spring count being at 1378, and our current count being at 1370 as we had a couple families leave the district. That's another reason for my recommendation to potentially open up, again, it's limited enrollment, but to open up some seats for each of those grade levels. Our current enrollment at each building, OP with 420, middle school at 424, high school 526. The student enrollment projection for 25-26 school year, I did receive, and it just went on a webinar with Kathy Merrifield and the consultant rep from Stanford Consulting. And after meeting with him and sharing, he was able to share out a calculation that I wanted to share out with the board, and that is a more conservative projection. The conservative calculation then for 25-26 at this time, again, the projections shared by this third party to include special ed students is 1350. So with that said, in consideration of losing potential, some students, I do feel like it's an opportune, moment, time to open up some of our seats in our younger grade levels. Again, not to go past, of course, our class size maximum, but actually to meet in the middle, so I feel like we're still, or my recommendation is still respecting the board's optimal, or more so, making sure that you have an appropriate teacher to student ratio, so you're making that impact at the younger grade levels. So I did attach my recommendations for each of the sections, obviously just depending on how many sections. And typically, if you can see, I'm bumping it up on average 2 students per section is my recommendation. And then one other point that I would like to make and share is that, there's only few opportunities for us to generate revenue. As you probably are aware, is to increase our FTE per pupil funding, to increase student enrollment, and then through grant funding, so that we can provide as many programs and opportunities for our students as possible. So some of you were wondering where my recommendation was coming from. This is why with, acquiring that student enrollment projection, I think was very responsible, so that we can make recommendations based upon what might be coming to us, of course, in the future.
So, no question.
Sure.
If the numbers that you wanna bump up and stuff, does that count for anybody who moves into the district though, or is that gonna, like,
Moves into the district,
so
so
like
the-
if they move, if a family moves into Almont, and obviously needs to send their children to school, wants to send them to Almont, that's gonna make the number go up even more, right?
because they're a resident of
Right.
Almont. So, and again, I think that's why my recommended numbers are to stay within that middle, so we're not even near that maximum threshold.
Do you
And I
know-
think on average, or if you wanted the historical data, I would probably reference, or make reference to my pupil accounting director, if we wanted some of the historical, typical on average, what we see. Is that okay if I reference her, I would assume?
Yeah,
If you
do
need
you
that.
have like an idea of how many families move in each year to the district?
Susie Stonewood, but it's usually offset by the people who move out, but we'll see more people move out. I can give you numbers of how many new families live in the district, I have to pull all that up. But yeah, usually we have people that move out, so if it varies, it's only by.
Not so many that move in.
Right, so that was, again, based upon when I did chat with Mrs. Myers originally, keeping that in consideration, that's why I didn't want to go near that maximum number, just to your point, just to give some of that room to some of our residents that might be moving in.
Question was, how many moved out, you said?
Since when? Because we lost 20 students in this fall.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, so, yeah, we had 1390 in the fall, current count right now is 1370. And actually, our spring count, just about a month or so ago, right, was at 1378, and we've lost 8 students since.
And do we know why we're losing them? Is there like like when you leave a job, you get like an exit survey or exit?
So, well, some of it, right, so some of it, and I can probably pair up with, but through our study that was conducted, we might not know the answer for every student, to account for every student, but we do know that we are faced with competitive programming for schools, of course. We're faced with that as far as losing, for example, 54 students to Armada. And all that information is available on the My School data. But we're losing students to competitive programming. We're losing some students to online learning opportunities, so that they are able to, do their K-12 at home online. That's another a portion. I know that other competitive districts included Romeo as well. So we're losing kids to, I feel like, more like robust offerings programs. So one of the things that his name is Frederick shared with us from the Stanford consulting firm is that we really want to try and do our due diligence to attract our families early on. So opening up that GSRP is definitely a step in the right direction, and to try to keep them at the, what was the phrase there, Kathy? Capture and keep.
Kindergarten and keep.
Yeah, capture
Wow,
kindergarten and keep.
that's so intense.
So, capture kindergarten and keep. So, again, allowing, and again, to my point, my rationale, to allow a few of those openings, again, in those early grade levels, so that we can get them in our system and keep them throughout their K-12 experience.
If we do get closer to the maximum number, I know there's possibly more funding available, through one of our grants and stuff like that for like para-educators.
Correct.
para-coaches.
Yes.
Would
Yeah.
you look at getting more help in those classes?
Of course, yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we have that teacher to student or support ratio. Whatever we can do to build that support in, whether it's Title I funds or 31A, which is our title and at-risk funds. That's my recommendation.
Did you have any questions, Ann?
I don't know if it's outside our purview as the board of directors, but how, or not directors, the board, but how do the teachers feel about increasing class sizes towards that maximum? Is it-
Towards that maximum?
Yeah, and mostly looking at it from the OP standpoint, because the classes are pretty full as it is, in my opinion. If you start getting towards 28, 30 students per classroom at OP, you know, that negatively affects the teachers, they have to do more work.
I think because of historically and what our pupil director has shared with me historically, I feel like I'm basing my recommendation so it's a balance, so that we're not moving towards that, maximize that, 28 or 30 or 32 in a class. So I'm trying to make a recommendation that, is responsible, keeping all of that in mind. I think if I question or I surveyed any teacher, I think they'll probably tell you less is more kind of a thing, so that that's who they are. They want to have that direct impact on their, on the child's literacy and their math instruction, of course. But as a district, I'm looking out for district health in what we're doing and promoting, so that we can keep our doors open. Yes, and if there's one more thing that, Mrs. Myers would like to share. Yeah.
Also, we'd just be voting to open it as limited enrollment. You don't have to commit to a number right now. So if we see an influx, which would be great, of people coming in and moving here, we could say, you know what, we did open it for limited, but we could limit it to one if we don't have the space. We don't have to the number of spots open isn't public. That's our decision. We just have to say if we're open or not, and what type of, limited or like high school or anyone. Not, that sounded flippant, but we don't have a set number.
So when you vote on this, it's going to be limited, right? It would be a limited school or enrollment. But I was asked by the board to make my recommendation and to be clear and maybe how many seats I'm recommending per section. So that's why I shared that with you in my rationale.
Mrs. Materius?
Yes.
Just a clarification, and Mrs. Smith, maybe you would know this, it seems to me that in the past that when we did this, we decided what a maximum number was, if I recall
We
correctly.
did in the past, and so I don't know, maybe things have changed, I'm not sure.
The maximum, so this is outlined in the teacher's contract as far, that's where I pulled these numbers. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. What was decided in the past when we opened for grade level, the board made the decision. We didn't say limited and allow you to do X amount. The board made the decision at each grade level, this one's closed, this one's open, and how many. The board did make that decision. So that's the way that it's been done in the past. Am I
Yeah, like
correct
if
in
it
that?
was, we would have maybe approved 2 open spots for kindergarten and 3 for first grade, 7 for second, we would have, we approved the number of open spots. So, and maybe things have changed.
I guess what I'm doing, I'm sorry.
I thought that's what was being approved.
Yeah, so that's what we're saying, right? We want limited enrollment. You're saying, though, not so much superintendent recommendation, that you decided as a board how many spots would be open. Am I saying that correctly?
You would make a recommendation, the board would talk about it, and then the board would make the final decision as to how many were going to be.
Got it. Okay.
And it just past history, and I'm going back a million years, even when I was in school, it's always been the focus of our Board of Education to keep OP numbers low, because we know that if we can get those kids in and really get them going, we performed well, especially on testing, and that's also been shared with all of our test scores. So that has always been a major focus of the school board. And I've been to a lot of school board meetings where Mr. Hoffa would say that. So I think that we have to be aware of that. I would like to get a copy of that study so that we can take a look at that. I think I sent you an email on it earlier today.
Go from Frederick?
Yes.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that would be nice to see, because
For sure.
it seems to be a more realistic view of,
And as, maybe you know this, he puts out different projections, Ms. Fred, so like it's like the most likely, the low enrollment projection. So the number that I shared with you was the conservative one, so that's that 1350 potentially for 25-26 school year. So again,
and
making my point, like I feel like we do have, you know, potential space for students coming in to open up that door.
well, I mean, I certainly understand why we have school of choice, and we also have to understand that part of the reason that possibly part of the reason that some of the bond information would not pass is because the school of choice numbers being at 25-28%. So we have to be aware of our community as we make the decision. And we also have to be aware of that average class size and what our focus has always been. And also in recognizing that when you do school of choice, it starts at the kindergarten level. So usually when I know that when Mr. Zott was here and we were downsizing, that's when the numbers went up in classes in the high school, and I'm sure in the middle school where you were told you have to increase your class size and a teacher would be laid off. Hopefully we're not getting to that, but losing, actually it's 40 students since the fall of the year. That's a significant amount of money. So
20 students since fall, 1390 to 1370.
But you're
I'm
talking,
sorry.
your fall expectation is 1350.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah,
So
1350, yes.
from,
Yes.
fall to fall
Yes.
in a 1 year period of
Yes.
time, that's a
Yes.
significant loss.
Yes.
So
And we're
you're-
adding staff and, but fortunately the staff that we're adding is grant funded. But we have to be aware of some of those things because we've got to make sure that we are maintaining good fiscal responsibility. That's just coming from a finance committee point of view, I guess.
So Ms. Vaughn's recommendation would be for the number that's in the column, right?
Yes,
last
that's
time.
my, yes,
That's how many you
that's
want.
how many per grade level is in the column, is how many per grade level. So for kindergarten, I'm asking for one student per section, 4 total.
That's,
Because you asked me to recommend per grade level how many seats, so that's what I did.
so it sounds like my interpretation here is that it can be a dynamic number that we can go up to the number that you're recommending. So are we limiting ourselves by recommending that number? If we up it 2, like say for kindergarten, go to 2 and we can accept 1? Are we limiting ourselves there from a revenue standpoint and getting kids in the school district standpoint? And if the teachers are okay with an extra student, an extra 2 students, why not have that option on the table? We can always tell the kids no private, we can go down to 1 if we choose to.
Mr. Chase?
I'm just kind of trying to think of some other questions. Go ahead.
May I ask a
Yeah,
clarifying
yeah,
question? I
absolutely.
actually have 2 here. As a new member of the board, has there ever been, like, with these 3 buildings we have, knowing that 2 years ago when we were going for a bond, that everyone was saying, we have no room in the buildings, we have no room in the buildings, we need to get a bigger building because we have no room. And now we're going down students, and we're saying, whoa, we're going down students, we need more students. Has there ever been a determination of what the ideal number of students for Almont Community Schools is for these 3 buildings?
Great question.
Like, and if there has been in the past, because I don't know if the past boards have ever done that, or past superintendents, and like what number we should be targeting roughly. With the window. You're the new
from the
historian,
historical point of
we know
view,
Jamie.
Let's
you're
get
the
the
historian.
best weigh in on
Since
this.
2008, that was, I think, when the economy went bad and we shifted out to, and that was when Mr. Zott said up the numbers in the classroom, and it was recommended, they offered a buyout to the teachers because we knew as we kept losing numbers and what the trend was gonna be for the future, we were taking a look at that and making sure that we were maintaining good financial input for our district. So it's not a matter of, a Class A is a certain minimum size, and they say that Class A is really not great educationally because it's too many students. You know, Class B, if I recall correctly, and it shifts each year, but I think that it's around 500 students in the high school when you go to a Class B size, and education is good. The educational balance, they said, historically, kind of when you're in that Class C, Class B, and again, it was your high school numbers, test scores showed that when you stayed in that range between Class C and Class B, test scores ended up being stronger. But no, for our district, you know, the high school is not filled at all, and but you're not going to get kids school of choice typically coming in at the high school level.
Correct.
You know, the place where you want them is at OP, only the problem is that OP is the building that's been full for
Yep.
the past few years, and that's why we moved the 4th grade up, and that's why we moved the 8th grade up, because there was no room at OP. And so that was when we put forward that bond 2 years ago for doing a building. It was wanting to keep the school of choice, and the community was saying, you have 25% of your population at school of choice, you know, we're not gonna build a building for people that are not paying. So, you know, there was that challenge. So last year, we closed off school of choice at OP. We just closed it off because OP was full. And, you know, when you talk to teachers, educators, you know, this number, Mrs. Smith, I believe that this number was created with the use of the teachers, the school board, what was best practice for that age group. That's how these numbers were determined initially, you know, and we've always tried to keep them at the minimum of the optimal class size. We never wanted to go towards the maximum, and that's been board policy for, gosh darn, ever since I was in high school. Yes, that's a long, long time ago. So, you know, you're talking money versus what kids are gonna get out educationally.
Quality.
Yeah.
And that's why my recommendation again was to not go towards that maximum number, but to try to strike a balance for, you know, a couple students within each of those sections.
So sort of, I guess to follow up on mine, is that something that we should have as like an ideal target number of students for the district? Or is that like, because it just seems like, hey, let's add these to the, like we seem to like drill into the class sizes, but not into the overarching number of the district. I don't know if that's like I don't know if it's like, I guess with the school structure, like, is that not normal? Like, if it was a business world discussion, we would be like, hey, we want X amount of staff members on hand because we make X amount of dollars, like, we would have that number, and I just didn't see it anywhere.
And
I don't know
it
if
hasn't
it's-
been a magical number for the district, because
Right.
each building houses different numbers.
Right,
So,
right.
it's
We
more
do have
for
it at
building.
we have it at the building level, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's definitely at the building level, and if you go into the bond paperwork,
Okay.
it shows what the maximums are at each building level.
Okay. And then my second question would be, as a board member, if we were going to tell teachers to up these class sizes, I think the board should probably reconsider what we can call class optimums. You gotta be willing to stand behind it, so if we were to vote for this, and you're gonna go 2 to 3 students over most of these class optimums that the previous boards have set, I think we should adjust the optimums in that regard, but that's more, I guess, of a comment than a question.
Well, and that would be changing board policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you would have to do that there, if you were gonna proceed with that, because that's, I mean, you got +2, +1.5, +2.4, +2. Yeah, so most of them are gonna be over 2, and 5th grade would be 4.8 over their optimum. So, that's all I got. Just to consider that, if you're gonna vote on it.
Great questions, actually.
I just want to understand, like, on kindergarten, so if you add 4, right? that wouldn't that make it 28 then? For each
For
section?
four sections, so you'd be adding,
One per
One section.
but that puts 24
So,
students
would it
into a
put your
kindergarten
Would
class.
it push your projected number though then to 96? That, am I thinking of this wrong, or reading your chart wrong?
So projected enrollment, if that would, that's only if they come, right? If they come. So yes, I would be recommending that we would have no more than 96 students in kindergarten.
Right, and
Yeah.
then, but at 96, doesn't that make it 28 in a class?
24.
24.
24 in a class.
Because there's four sections,
There's an average
so
class
one,
size number right
add one
now.
to each,
24.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Add one per
It
class.
would be 23 with a 4.
Plus one, so I mean, my recommendation is 4, so right now, we're looking at 23 in the 25-26 school year. With my recommendation, if you were to open that door for an additional student, it'd be 24 in each class.
Okay, and then, I think this was the column we were talking about the other day that I thought would be helpful, with your number, trying to figure out, so the first grade would be 20, oh, that would be 20.
23,
Rest of
22.
it,
I got them all written down,
Yeah.
23, 22
okay.
would be the
Half of a student,
24.
yeah.
And then second would be what?
24.4,
Third?
26.2,
Fourth?
25.8,
And fifth?
28.8.
Okay, so fifth grade is too high, right? We would need to decrease that number,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we took fifth grade down to like 6 or 8, that would make that more reasonable.
Every 5 students you take out would be minus 1 average class size. So if you recommended 5 students, it would go down to 27
That's
which would still be basically 4 students over what the previous board has said optimum. You're already 3 students over, roughly. That would be, if you halved it, that would be 4 over. If you accepted this as is, it would be 5 over the optimum.
So when I look at the numbers on fifth grade, the only one that has to change, am I reading that right? If we want to not hit the max?
It won't hit the max. Your average student class size would be 28.8.
Right.
So,
29.
29.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry, I was reading the earlier one, it's
Yeah.
32, okay.
Yeah,
that's-
so 32 is your max,
Yeah,
but
that
yeah,
would be
you're
okay.
at, yeah,
I
at
forgot we're
29.
in the older section, okay.
Did you have any other questions?
So I think, like, to me, I would want to know that we have extra help at the lower levels.
My thoughts exactly, on the lower levels especially. I feel that we would get teacher
If
pushback.
we got, into those higher numbers.
Mrs. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Can I guess make a clarifying statement,
Sure.
maybe recognize then, you're receiving, $10,000 per student, and you're adding 1 to a class, or 2 to a class, are you going to then add 4 paraprofessionals, and what is the cost of a paraprofessional per year? I mean, again, I think you have to take a look at that, are you losing out there? I'm not sure. I think that you need to take a look at it at least financially, from the financial.
Yes, absolutely, agreed. Adam, do you have any other questions on this?
No.
Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, it feels like a lot.
Mr. Gutierrez, rather
Yes.
than me sending an email later,
Yeah.
my clarifying question would be can we get why do we, I understand this for funding purposes, probably mostly here. Can we get the why behind it? What are we trying to fund with the school of choice? Why we think that it's essential to the students? Does that make sense?
No, can you explain a little bit further? I just want to make sure that I'm
Yeah, no, it's
addressing
not,
your question.
I guess my question would be, if I was gonna vote for this, it's roughly $540,000. If they all came, obviously, and I know that that probably wouldn't happen that way, but is the purpose of this upping the class size and going above the teacher minimums and adding to their burden and probably slightly lowering test scores, is the goal financial, like a financial addition?
That's obviously
That's
one,
the primary
that's
goal.
one,
Okay.
that's one of the reasons,
Okay.
definitely, is to look at what we can do to generate revenue. But
Okay.
It's more than that. I mean, I want to be clear.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm asking, like, what is, what is
I'm
the
very
reason?
proud of our test scores and our,
Yeah.
and our achievement, so I want to be clear there. I just, to be honest, I thought it was more about the board asking me for my recommendation per grade level, so that you could have an idea of what that might look like and how that would affect each section.
Okay.
So, but yeah, like a fiscal responsibility, but also, again, as our numbers are dropping, that's why I wanted to bring the student enrollment projections to you.
Absolutely.
As our student numbers are dropping, what can we do to continue to maintain our families, so our Almont residents are not leaving to go to Armada or
Correct.
Romeo? So what can we do in, again, per our consultation with our, for the enrollment projections, Stanford Consulting, what can we do to keep them in kindergarten and keep them throughout the K-12 experience?
Okay.
So definitely concerned about our declining enrollment, absolutely, but not trying to overburden the teachers.
Right.
That would never be, never be even a conversation, because that would never be my direction.
Yeah.
It would be to support our district and be fiscally responsible, keep our doors open, attract our families so they're not leaving.
Right, okay.
That's really mine. But as far as if you want to change the numbers, I think, just for clarification's sake, moving forward with Monday night's decision, we just need to know if we have limited open enrollment, and I'm going to defer to Amanda Myers. That's what we're hoping for, is at least making if we're doing a limited, my point is we don't have to know the numbers. We just need to know if we're going to do limited open enrollment.
When do we need it on the number?
ISD wanted it last week, so I'm submitting that ISD number. So as soon as possible, to start advertising, people are calling.
So we do need to know the number for Monday then, right?
That can be something that isn't even announced, it's just whether or not we're open for limited. Within the board, you guys can decide the number and let us know, so when I'm starting to take applications, I know what I'm looking for, but
As of Monday night, we need to know limited or closed for Monday night is the decision.
This is Terry's.
Yes.
I'd just like to make a kind of a macro statement about this. Like we're having and hawing over these numbers, but we've already heard from fall to fall, we're losing 40 students. This is only adding 54 total, so we're only adding 14 above what we already started with this last fall. I know some students that left probably were from higher grades, maybe from higher grades or whatever, but it's really just trying to get back to numbers where we already were. Overall, I agree with the initial, like the vote on Monday will just be, like, are we open to enrollment or not?
Limited or not?
Right.
Okay.
There's three of you making the decision, so.
Yeah. Are you guys comfortable with that, making that vote for limited or not by Monday? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And now, thank you, Jason, for your patience. We're going to turn it over to Jason Frederick here. Start with your maintenance update, and then I have a fact sheet for the track.
Okay. So as far as the maintenance update, just touching base on some projects that are ongoing. We began the fire panel install at the high school at the start of spring break. Phase 1 was completed yesterday, the 21st. They've gone as far as they can while the building is occupied with staff and students. Once they'll be back on Monday, June 9th to complete Phase 2, which should take about 3 weeks, they're saying. So all the wires ran, conduits ran. It's just a matter of putting in the new device and what they call demolition, the old fire system, and then making the new one live. The filter first for next board work session, I plan on having an RFP so that we can move forward with that grant money, that $139,000, which can only be used for, the state kind of changed their guidelines a little bit. That initial grant can only be used for adding bottle fill and filtered drinking fountain stations throughout the schools. So there's some additional grant money that Mr. Boone already left. I'd like to thank him for helping me. I've applied for an additional $59,000 that's available within the state to do inline filtration. Main focus of that would be keeping debubblers and replacing the faucets in the OP classrooms, because children get lost. You know, even though I'm going to disperse some other drinking fountains closer to each wing, besides just the cafeteria and by the boys and girls bathrooms, as well as, yeah, like I said, putting one in each hallway. You know, the kids, they get out, they go to a drink, they go to the bathroom. There are times that I have to shut the classroom bathrooms down, it really takes away. So hopefully we'll find out. I don't know of a timeline. That was due, we had to have that in yesterday, which it was completed. As far as on the accident maintenance side, I was able to hire a full-time person. That's going well so far. So we will continue to monitor that. Were we going to discuss the repeat, Mrs. Baum?
Are you prepared to discuss that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't know, because obviously as I present this track RFP, and with the remaining balance that we have in the sinking fund, there's the potential that we could use some of the 31A or 31AA money for that. I'm still on track from what I had said to the board. I'm over by about $214. I initially said $50,000. Due to some counts, I thought I could come in a little closer to 46, 47, but after doing some counts, I'm back up to $50,194 to repay the district. And of course, that is utilizing our ability to purchase, so as I said this multiple times, utilizing our purchasing power, seeing that we own the rights to our restricted lock set through SLAG. And we would be treating each building as a separate project due to not knowing when they would be completed, rather than having this one be one larger project. I have also did my due diligence in terms of reaching out for the informal quotes for the labor, and I will receive those as well. For the track RFP, that was due back, and I had 3 companies that had responded to me. One of them was incomplete. They didn't meet any of the criteria that I had outlined in the RFP. The second one met part of that criteria. Some of the criteria that I had was I wanted a bid that stated the cost for a urethane track. You know, obviously they would all receive an 1.5 inch asphalt overlay, as well as repairing the cracks underneath. And I'm just kind of giving the simple on this. The RFP is posted to the site if anybody would want to see more detail. So I requested, the 2 different surfaces were a urethane mat and then a latex mat. Currently we have a latex mat. Some variations would be with or without structural spray. The way that I kind of got what structural spray is, it's similar to if you were to buy, and for the people in listening land and the people here, I'm sure that this could be scrutinized or no, that's not it, but this is how my mind processed it. The structural spray is similar to if you were to go ahead and put carpet in your house, and whether you Scotch guard or don't Scotch guard, right? Scotch guard is there to protect it. But it is highly recommended that if we do not go with the structural spray right off the get, that we go ahead and we put that money aside to budget it to have that done within 7 to 10 years so that we can potentially get that lifespan of 15, 20 years out of the track. So with that being said, the second company that I gotten, the initial urethane with the structural spray came back at $456,000. $456,900. They did give a couple other that was without the structural spray, that came in at $349,000, and they had gotten another quote from another company which was $382,000 for that. They did not give a latex bid, which was part of a request from Mr. Wade, was to get a latex to match what we currently have. I did have, the third company came back with a urethane with a structural spray. That price was $344,000. Now, to go with that same urethane, without a structural spray, that dropped it down to $272,000. Now, stepping that down, they completed all my requirements that I asked for in the bid. They also gave a latex mat price without a structural spray, and that was $260,000. Now, my understanding as of March 18th, our sinking fund balance stood at $275,000, I don't know why my math numbers, a little over $275,000. So, there are some additionals to these prices that I'm given, okay? And that is, we want to add a drainage system to the north end of the track. I do have a price that would be $7,250 for 300 lineal feet. That would take it all along that north side. We take it past the long jump, and then we would dump it into a favorable area, which there's a culvert down there. There's a little swale right there by the sidewalk. As well as, you know, if anybody's walked around the track, there's sod areas along the track that don't even take up a whole mower deck width. We would remove those because obviously add 1.5 inches of asphalt and then another 1/2 inch matting on it. That 1 3/4 that we would add would put us up above that sod. And so we could sculpt, you know, prior to having the track installed, we could sculpt those sod areas, put like a geomat or a covering down, and then put some sort of crushed limestone down that would, you know, we would limit the amount of traffic that we would have on that. It's still acceptable for vehicles to travel across that, and I will get that in writing. But we would have to utilize the mats that we already have, no differently for football players or anybody running across onto the football field, you know, the golf cart when they set up for football. But we'll clarify some of those other things. So, you know, with that being said, along with that $14,750, you know, that puts us right under that $275,000 that is the balance remaining for the sinking fund, and that would, at that point, eliminate the sinking fund. So my recommendation tonight is for the company that fulfilled all of my requests, Star Trek Enterprise. They are the company actually that, you know, this was the high school's a 1986 bond with a completion construction in 1988. They were the company that installed the track originally. So they've been great to work with. They've answered a lot of my questions. So my recommendation is not just based on price alone. It's the fact that, you know, they've shown themselves. You know, our track, besides some repairs, has lasted almost 4 years as far as having a good base and a good core to it. So, so that would be my recommendation, as well as that does fit our price point for the sinking fund dollars that we do have left.
Mr. Barrow?
So just to make sure we know, the building site is Mr. Burrow, Mr. Burns, and then Mr. Wade, and I'm filling in for Mr. Wade.
Mr. Barrow? Mr. Frederick, thank you for putting all this together. Do you have a specific recommendation on which
Yes.
material?
Yeah, I go along with, and we could re-clarify with Mr. Wade, but, you know, currently we have a latex, and I believe Mr. Wade is satisfied with the latex, not only from a board member standpoint, but as well as a track coach. So, so yeah, we would go with the latex without the structural spray, but I would strongly recommend that from a budgetary standpoint that we put money aside so that we can, that we could go forward with that structural spray.
The assumption there that the structural spray is in the $70,000-ish range?
Yes, let me, yeah, it's $72,000 as of 2025.
Right.
So, I mean, just being realistic, I don't want to get 7 years out and say, well, you know, it's however much.
Okay, and then was there, I don't remember, was there a difference in lifespan between the urethane and the latex?
No. I mean, some of it still comes down to that structural spray, from my understanding. I'm sure there's proponents and people that support one more than the other. So, but as far as, you know, that dollar amount that separates the two, I think the biggest point would be that we make sure that we get that structural spray within that 7 to 10 years so that we can preserve it.
Thank you.
Jason?
Yes.
When would you expect completion if we signed off on this at the next board meeting?
Completion would be before school starts.
So it would be done this summer?
It would be done this summer. Now, with it not being competition ready at this point, one of the, you know, a lot of these companies are already filling up. Star Trek has said that they would want to get on there right away, as soon as possible, to start stripping off the old matting, doing some repairs. Obviously, for laying the asphalt as well as the latex matting, there are some temperature criteria that we would have to hit. But they would want to get on as soon as possible so that they would be ready for that. Now, with that being said, we would potentially not be able to do graduation out on the field because we would be under construction. Not just from a safe standpoint, but it might look kind of nasty sitting up in the grandstand. So that's just something, and I've already begun to explore the possibility of, I know that it gets pretty steamy, and we did graduation last year, and it was because we had rain. Looking at possibly some portable HVAC units, what the cost would be, energy consumption, things like that.
It wasn't horrible, but I mean, it worked.
Right. And it just depends on, you know, look at the way that the spring is going. It's going to be 80 degrees
Right.
on Thursday, and then we're going to fall off, and then we're going to be back up
Yeah.
home again. So just taking everything into consideration, you know, the possibility that if we do go forward, to have an option of a portable AC unit for not, you know, for power as well as for drainage and whatnot, just as a backup, just so that we, you know, if it did get nasty as far as temperature and heat.
Are there any other sports that would be impacted over the summer, like the practices and?
Yeah, football may.
Yeah.
Football may, depending on how fast we can get in there, weather dependent as well.
Right.
So that we would just have to communicate with them.
Youth football.
Youth football, but, you know, when we did this new lawn maintenance contract, it was written in there that we had extra payments. So if we had to move things out and move into the softball fields to do some of that in that grassy area, then we'd have to do what we had to do to get a new track that would be competition ready.
Yeah,
And that would then be ready for Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, there's going to be some give and take.
Then we could potentially, you know, show to the community that we've been good stewards, granted 11 years later, and that possibly we could
Oh, boy.
spur them to, you know, anything else we throw them.
Spur them to fill out the community survey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Just one, Mr. Rowe.
Yeah.
Our recommendation sheet here says finance committee, is that correct? It's coming out of the building and site committee.
Been recommended by the finance.
So it should
it's supposed to be
be,
building
it
site.
should be building
Yeah.
site?
It's okay.
It was an old
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry
about that.
It confused me,
It's
sorry.
okay. Sorry
It
about
was a lot of money, we're building a site.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize, that's my oversight, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Mr. Burrow, can I just ask a clarifying?
Absolutely.
If and when we do the track, no matter what, people are gonna be off of that to have it done at some point. There won't be a graduation because you're gonna be doing it in the summertime. So whether it's this summer, or the following summer, no matter what, we're still gonna have those same issues. Is that correct?
I believe
Just
so.
wanted to clarify that, thanks.
Yeah. It's more just being aware of the community's questions that are gonna be coming at us.
yeah.
Jason, from your standpoint, is this a project that you're able to manage along with all your other job duties and stuff? You know, like I kind of envision it like that construction manager, you know, because there's a lot that goes into it.
So how I went about this RFP, and it says it in the opening paragraph, is that I was looking for a lead contractor with the experience that could oversee such a project. I did do some feeling around from a soft quote standpoint of what the potential charge would be for a construction manager. This particular company, Star Trek, they've done a lot of jobs. And I've made it quite clear to the owner that he would be heading up the project from start to finish. And that I would be oversight or overwatch on it, and he would be reporting directly to me. So I guess, yes, I can handle this. I feel comfortable with this. So this is not me getting an asphalt company. This is not me getting a track mat company. This is this contractor that he's going to handle everything. And he'll be reporting to myself, to Mrs. Bond.
And so it really be, you would have them, the
Yes.
drainage system, that's not part of it?
So the drainage system I'm going to be doing myself in-house with another contractor.
Okay.
So, so yeah, that's separate, as well as removing the sod.
Facade.
You know, those things that we would get done prior to them doing anything with the tractor, because they're going to require machinery to come in. I did have, that's something else to note, there's storm drainage on the interior of the track that's on the corners, as well as the 50-yard line of the football field. I had that camera. We're good. Especially for its age, and the fact that we did have some trouble due to the size of the pipe, but we had those cameras and they're good. We don't have to do anything on the interior. So by doing it at the north end like we want, as well as raising that track up 1 3/4 inches, you know, we will get above and beyond a lot of that decomposition that is almost 40 years old, that has built up. If you look at it and see how the turf is so much higher than the track, it's been built up. So.
And then, moving forward, if the track isn't, when the track is installed, how can we help combat like some of that, the moss area, you know, the things that kind of deteriorate? Do we have a plan, do you have an idea or a plan?
Yes,
Okay.
and it goes back to that 1 3/4. And when we walked the track and we looked at it, and then we made sure that that we could do such a job, you know, without any sort of serious contingencies of once we take the latex matting off, we're like, holy cow, it's horrible down there. That it's gonna put us up and over. Not to mention the asphalt company when they come in and the way they put the slope on it, that water will run off now a lot more. Versus, you know, a lot of the water that I've been observing that's on there, and even Mr. Wade, who's provided pictures for us, you know, a lot of it is in like that traffic lane, you know, that's created kind of a bird bath area, and some of the repairs that we've had done. So going forward and having it done correctly, that would take care of it. That water won't sit down there, and it won't be pushed from the exterior also.
And I apologize if you said this tonight or previously, because all of this include, when you say like track, is that the long jump, like is that all the components
Yes,
of
yes,
the track?
and that is part of the RFP. That is the long jump, it's the pole vault, and then it's the high jump area as well.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yes,
that it was just the
it's
physical.
all of the areas that would constitute
A track sport.
Yes, the track sport, and it was all labeled in the RFP as well, even though it says Almont High School Track and Service. It's kind of all encompassing.
And it comes all painted, everything's
Yes.
ready to use?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, trying
No.
to hear questions, I'm just trying to understand.
Can I read through the sheet, I
Yep.
just want to make sure. When the purchase of and contract for single items of supplies, materials, or equipment exceeds the amount designated by statute, the district shall obtain competitive bids, policy 6320. We have received the results from the track RFP. 2 companies sent proposals, and they both have been reviewed and verified by Mr. Frederick. Star Trek was the lowest bid and will meet the requirements needed as shown below.
Can you just make sure that it reflects his
building
recommendation,
inside.
latex
I'm
without
sorry.
structural spray? Because it doesn't list which one, so I just want to make sure that is in the motion for,
Yes, I want to thank you
and
for-
the drainage probably, even though the dollar value's below the amount is included with this.
Yep, latex without structural spray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for $260,000.
Right, and then he
Yeah.
had mentioned the
The
drainage
drainage and sod removal.
and the sod removal, if we could get all 3 of those into the proposal, so.
Yep. Jason, thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you.
your follow through on that. We really
Yes,
appreciate it.
thank you, Jason.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I guess I got so excited about Building Insight, I just wanted to make reference to our rated recognition under curriculum, my apologies. But that this will be a rated recognition. We will have Mrs. Walker presenting some ELA writing awards to you on Monday night. So I'm sorry I skipped over that. Wanted to revisit that. So now we're on to questions and comments from the audience.
I'm sorry, was there something for our high school curriculum?
We did that
That's-
in order with Mr.
Mr. Spear did that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
That's when I.
We jumped around.
Yeah,
so it's
jump
no one's
around a
fault.
little bit
No one's
tonight.
fault it is.
Yeah.
Questions and comments, audience?
I've only got a few pages here.
I can only imagine it's going.
Why not? After
All right,
you
start
said
the
that.
timer, start the timer.
First off, I would really caution you on bumping up the enrollment in Orchard Primary. That's one of the worst things I think you possibly, could do. The room is in the high school, and that's really where you need to right-size these three buildings. If you've got to move more and more, you can change the name of these schools, if everything else, because people won't get all bent out of shape because you're putting their second or third graders in middle school. Don't call it middle school, call it elementary. We used to have an elementary school over on Church Street. So I would really, really caution you. I mean, the money sounds, enticing, but with the additional students comes additional cost, and I don't think you're gonna, save a lot of money. And Russ, to answer your question as far as, doing a budget type thing, it's really difficult. I mean, I sat on that board for a long, long time, and it's very difficult to do because the state of Michigan won't tell you how much money they're gonna give you per student. So to come up with an optimum number where you can do a budget, you'd have to do, a budget and then sort of guess and say, okay, fine, I want 1,450 kids, and I'm going to assume I'm going to have this much. Now, what are my costs going to be to break even? But it's almost impossible to do and come up with an accurate number. But the question I have is with the Governor Whitmer's community college is supposedly free for every student in the state of Michigan. Do we get a break from them when we send dual enrollment kids to Macomb?
That's a good question, we'll look into that.
And I know some of the ones, even because we don't have a community college in Lapeer County, I know I got grandkids that go over to Brighton, and they go to Washington College there, and they have to pay the difference between the in-county and out, so it's very, very minimal then compared to what we would have
We'll
to
look
pay
into that.
here. So just as a question. The other one is, I know a year ago, we had a lot of trouble getting the money out of the sheriff millage. Have we received all the money we're entitled to from the sheriff's millage, the $110,000? The sheriff's millage, the millage that they passed in the, for the county sheriffs, and out of that, everybody got, resource officers.
Now I remember that.
And with Mandy being, she was
Yep.
inexpensive, I'll say not cheap, but inexpensive.
Yeah, I remember
And so we always had a lot of money that, that we could use for safety and things like that we're talking about there. And I didn't know if we got all that money or not. I know last year we had some problems because the village of Almont was playing around.
Yeah, I'll double check.
And wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
The other one, Mr. Spear answered in my question, but at least I think the board should know, they were talking about in the high school, the kids that didn't sign up for some of the classes and things like that. I said, do we know why they didn't sign up? Is it was it the staff, or was it the curriculum, or was it, what was it that you didn't, why wouldn't you sign up? We've got the kids here, they're smart enough to take some of these advanced classes, but why aren't they taking them?
Great question.
And he said, we haven't done a survey, but he said, that's not a bad idea, so.
Okay.
But that's, but don't raise the class sizes down in kindergarten. First and second grade. We fought for that for so many years to keep those class sizes small, and that's why the optimum in that contract maximum, they're gonna have to renegotiate a contract, and it's gonna cost you some money too, to get out of that with the teachers.
Thank you.
It's not gonna be cheap.
Questions or comments from the board? Sorry, go ahead.
As a parent, kind of along with what Mr. Bowman said, but I'm also, my kids only go here, they'd be school of choice, but they're an employee child. But I just really want to encourage, we're asking about why kids are leaving the district, or, you know, why are we losing kids, or what's happening. I can speak maybe too frankly. My teenager wants to leave Almont because of what's already, like, what's not offered here, and she's willing to go to Inland City. So I think, yeah, she's school of choice and we're not paying taxes here, but you are getting funding for her. She's a 4.0 student. You're losing bright students because of things that aren't offered here, and I'm talking about electives and extra things. So the more students we don't allow in the district, because we're gonna limit, and I get class sizes and stuff, that's less teachers, because we're gonna have, how are we gonna pay for teachers if we're losing students at the rate we are? And then we have less classes, and you're gonna keep losing kids, because right now, they know they can go to other districts and get a lot more offering. And just, it's just something to consider, because you're gonna lose bright students that aren't being challenged, or don't get, I love sports, and I have nothing against them, but we have a lot of sports options and not a lot of other electives for kids that maybe don't care about that. So it's just something to consider.
Questions or comments from the board?
To follow up on both the audience questions, Ms. Vaughn, can we, at some point before the next work session, compare like what we offer compared to Inlay and what we offer compared to the other districts that were for electives purposes? Like, are we really that low on electives compared to Inlay City? Like, I don't know what Inlay City offers.
That's a great question.
Like, so.
It's gonna be online, so that's.
It is
easy.
online,
Well, I
okay.
would imagine they're just
Okay,
like
I can find
us,
myself,
like our
I
course
can probably
guides,
do that too,
it's
yeah.
online,
Yeah,
so we
okay.
can do a cross-reference. That
Right,
should-
yeah, like if we could just have like a.
Yeah, that should not be a problem,
Yeah.
little spreadsheet or
That'd be
whatever.
great,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
So you said Emily City, I just wanna make sure that just local, like around
Um,
us.
Yeah, I'd look at Armada.
That's the one
Armada, and I
Armada
think
and
Romeo
Romeo.
losing kids too, which I mean, they're way bigger.
Those
than
are
we
actually the three that
Yeah.
Frederick mentioned, was Emily City, Armada, and
Yeah.
Romeo. Those are the three.
Okay.
I think just adding to that, on the real estate side, it's all I hear. You know, families that I serve locally, well, should we look into Armada? Should we look into Romeo? Those are always the top two.
Yep.
Mrs. Smith, I think that as you look at that, you also have to look at how many students they have, because the more students you have in a high school, the more electives you can offer. And because we have downsized so much, and because our dual enrollment, we're paying, what did we just pay, $60,000 just for Macomb for one semester? Because of that, a lot of our money is going in that direction. So unfortunately, then it limits what can be offered unless you have more students. So take a look at not only the curriculum, but if you need to compare the numbers that are in high school at that point too.
Anybody else?
I would just like to, if I could, I have a couple shout outs for thank yous. First of all, we did receive American Red Cross, so thank you, with the donations coming in for the wildfires in California. So we did raise over $1,600, which we were very proud of, because that was the time too. You can remember kind of a wonky time because we had so many snow days and things. So, but for us to raise that amount of money, we were proud to be able to donate that to support those families. So we did receive a thank you letter from American Red Cross. Speaking of thank yous, tomorrow is our secretaries or administrative assistant days. So I'm happy to report that our secretaries and administrative assistants went on a special lunch at Lucky's today. They were able to spend some time together, a well-deserved lunch. But we definitely, on behalf of the entire district, we'd like to extend our, of course, our appreciation for all that they do. They're so dedicated and organized and behind the scenes and always putting out fires before we even know that they exist. So definitely want to do a thank you to our secretaries and administrative assistants. Also, our coaching staff. I just would like to really, again, a thank you shout out. After just attending the last couple weeks and getting out there, my goal is always to get out on the field so I can see each of the programs, chat with the coaches if I have the opportunity. But in doing so in the last couple weeks, I am thoroughly impressed with our coaching staff and also the parent involvement. And beyond that is our community partners. Like, for example, Zach Zimmerman and I, the athletic director, and I went to the Lapeer County Sportsman's Club yesterday to check out our new track team. And that was amazing. I guess I'm on probably social media shooting a shotgun, shooting some skeet, if you will, some plays out there. But I would tell you that with the partnership with the Lapeer County Sportsman Club, with our hideaway lanes for supporting our bowling, Heather Hills supporting our golf program, I feel like we're incredibly blessed to have these partners. And that was just a realization, again, being out there last week, whether it's diamond dust that's being donated or, Coach Campbell working really hard out on those fields for the baseball program. It goes across the board. So I just thought it was worth a shout out, and for all the efforts that Zach Zimmerman is also putting in the time to make sure that every program is being, getting looked at. And again, more work to do. We have some improvements to make, but I am very proud of the progress that we've made in a year's time. So, and again, that also goes with Mr. Frederick, doing the work for the RFP for the track. I think Mr. Wade and I was out on the track yesterday. You can see like the excitement, that's coming for the projects that we're able to put through the finish line, no pun intended there. So I'm really excited about that. So thank you, everyone.
Any future agenda items?
Sister, I was reading through the information from MASB, and Brad Banasek at the April 16th, we all received a copy of it. He did a legal update on board pay, and kind of the average right now is $30 per meeting. We've always limited ours, but maybe that's something that we can take a look at, because he said that there were some changes with that. So.
Okay, thank you. I haven't read that one yet, I'm a little behind.
No, me too.
Anything else for future agenda items?
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Burrow?
I move the Board of Education adjourn the April 22nd, 2025 work session at 9:57 p.m.
Support.
Motion is support. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?